liberalism is an excellent place to start. However,
so if you feel confident to edit the Bible with a scalpel, I'm just going to do the same thing.
Yeah, but yours is worse than mine.
Okay, so it all gets ground down into a moral argument. So what do we need the religion for?
Correct. No, because of a conservative perspective, which effectively says U.S. law about Native Americans.
No, you said you had a law from the 1830s.
I did.
Wait, where did you get that from? What were you looking at? AI?
Yeah.
This assumption of keeping things unless you can have a good reason to get rid of them, which is something I've already said makes sense to me. This concept seems to have some value to you. And I can actually start to see it like how you're going to try to apply it to certain religious values. But I hear immigration and it just doesn't seem to fit the pattern. And I do actually also want to talk about...
Hey folks, please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out my newsletter. Information is in the description.
My beef with your community actually, or my beef with your content, so to speak, is actually something that makes your content more entertaining. But it's effectively like, I think that you and the liberals or whatever are playing footsie with leftist freaks who should be ultimately like yelled at and screamed at and bullied out of public life. But, you know, you doing those things makes the content more interesting. So we disagree. I think that you should take a pro-leftist bullying stance. But then I get to bully you about not bullying the leftists.
Yeah, but I don't understand what you're talking about. I just don't understand what you're talking about. Like, I play footsie. You're just talking about Mamdani AOC. That's all the things you're talking about.
Mamdani, AOC,
don't say Hasan
Vanguard, Aaron.
Wait, so you must have condemned Ro Khanna. Did I hear you say it?
Yeah, I mean, I've said that I like Ro Khanna for XYZ ABC, but I also don't like him for
Wait,
XYZ
what are you
ABC.
talking about? He just had a fucking sit down with Hasan Piker. Did you see it? Or did you miss that?
Yeah, I condemn that. Fuck him for that.
Oh, but you might still support him. You
know
fucking
what?
hypocrite. You fucking hypocrite. You fucking hypocrite. There is no through line into what you're talking about here. You will take issue with me hanging out with the Vanguard on Live and Learn when they're coming in and being grilled by Hutch and me actually opposing them. But when Ro Khanna has a fucking masturbation session with Hasan Piker, you're like, oh, I'll condemn that. You're such a hypocrite on this. I'm dead serious.
Well, I'll say it. Fuck Ro Khanna. On that.
But you don't, is he pussyfooting the way I am?
Probably. I haven't watched the content.
Oh, holy shit. So you think he went on there on Hasanabi's podcast and was more combative than I was with Vanguard and with Hutch there on Live and Learn?
No, I doubt it. But hold on. Let me actually articulate a sentence so we can get past memes.
Yeah.
So
I'm not memeing. The previous part was a meme. This is real. I don't think that you have any good standard that you're applying here. I think that you're going harder on me and people. Way. Yeah.
So it's the same way with Thomas Massie. Okay. Thomas Massie was Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are both the authors of the Epstein bill. The whole reason why we are absolutely, as a anti-Trump coalition, annihilating the Trump administration is because of legislation that was authored and pushed through by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. And so in that degree, they have my support. However, Thomas Massie is also like a schizophrenic fiscal conservative who legitimately believes in chemtrails. He thinks chemtrails are a thing. He's almost as crazy as Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so he doesn't have my support in that regard.
Yeah, but if it was Thomas Massie versus Ro Khanna for president, who'd you vote for?
Yeah, Thomas Massie all day.
Yeah, so then what good is this? What good is this bullshit? You're basically suggesting that someone who believes in chemtrails. I like
libertarians more than I like socialists or social democrats? Yeah.
It's Ro Khanna. He is in a tech fucking utopia over there in capitalist California.
Then he should stop playing footsie with socialists, and then maybe he'll get my vote.
Maybe your read on this podcast circuit shit, maybe that's what's fucked. Maybe you're unable to distinguish when a candidate is using someone.
The liberals are being fucking pussies where they have a leftist travel to an authoritarian nation that I would say has arguably demonstrated such morally egregious behavior that they're comparable to Nazi Germany before the Holocaust was discovered. And you guys are playing footsie with the guy.
Yeah, but maybe the thing is, the problem is though, Connor, maybe your analysis would hold weight if it were a Democrat that was sent there instead of Hasan Piker going there. And maybe it would work if the Democrats, I don't know, was part of this like long-standing bipartisan consensus against China. And I don't know if it weren't Joe Biden and all the Democrats who signed on to a bipartisan TikTok ban for the sole purpose of trying to stymie influence from allegedly from China. You know, some people have their other conspiracy theories about why the TikTok ban was put into place, but I would maybe take your criticism more seriously if it was, I don't know, tailored to Democrats as opposed to Hasan Piker. But the conflation between them never stops for you, does it?
Dude, if I had a map, because they do this with like Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, it would be like a red line directly from one character to another character. Okay, so saying, how dare you, my pearls, I must clutch them. How dare you associate the Democratic Party with the extremities of Hasan Piker's rhetoric?
It's something you don't do. Wait, no, because it's bullshit. No, because
Tlaib, AOC, Bernie Sanders,
it's such garbage.
Conor, you.
No, like, it's such fucking garbage. No, so
dude,
you don't do it for DeSantis,
and I go like this, and I'm
you don't do it for DeSantis. You don't do it for DeSantis. You don't do it to Vance.
Yeah,
You're considering. No, you fucking don't. Not with any bass in your voice. You don't do it for them. That's what these entire conversations have been about.
I like conservatarians more than I like socialists. Shocking for a Republican.
Yeah. No, but what you're suggesting is a direct through line to policymakers. This is Trump in the White House, Trump with control over the government, Trump with control, a lot of exercising control over the ideology of his base, where it's clearly top down from one direction. What's that direction? MAGA, comparing to some Democrats who are using Hasan's platform to spread their message and their agenda, and who are taking his audience and clearly extracting from him. You are comparing those two relationships and saying, I'm more troubled by a podcast appearance.
But by the way, we've already had this argument 3 times, so I don't know if I want to have it again.
Okay, all right.
I thought you were gonna come in and you were gonna say, "Oh man, I disagree with your characterization." Well, I guess you're not watching the content, which is fine. It's fine.
No, I do sometimes. I was fucking around with that. I do sometimes.
But I was what was it? I was just watching PF Young and Destiny fight over Nick Fuentes and whether or not liberalism has failed, and then also fighting about like the historical support for the Zionist vision of Israel. So that's what I thought we were going to fight about, but that's okay.
Oh, no. You think I'm going to fight about Israel with you?
I mean, we could if you wanted to. Matter of fact, I have a drawing. Do you want to see my drawing?
Finish what you were going to say, and then we'll get into your drawing.
Yeah. So anyways, what I've argued previously, which I still think is true, is that the right wing used excuses in order to justify their relationships with crazy people. But what happened was the crazy people were so powerful and so clouded up because they got hooked into the mainstream that as a result, they started to have to listen to the crazy people. And that's how we've ended up where we've ended up. And what's happening is I don't see that as extreme on the left wing. But whenever I bring it up in reference to the left wing, you say, oh, no. We're doing exactly what MAGA did 10 years ago, but we're different. We're built different. We're not going to fall into the trap. And I think it's fucking stupid. I think it's stupid.
I think that you just see Trump and Hasan as the same kind of figure with the same kind of influence that they have. And you're seeing this like specter that isn't a threat. It is not a threat.
Okay, I think is Hasan Piker, yes or no? Is he the largest political alt media political commentator in the Western world?
No.
Who's bigger?
Asmongold's bigger.
Okay, that's actually true.
Yeah.
Is Hasan number 2?
I don't know. He's up there.
Okay, he's up there. Anyways, let's just put it at top 5, top 10, or whatever. Tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people simultaneously believing that advocating for social democratic policy and also that you should sweep for all the authoritarian socialist regimes of the 20th century is repulsive to me. Okay, disgusting. This would be like, I don't know, the Republican Party cozying up to Nazis. It would be something like that. So the fact...
Do you understand that the fight right now in the Republican Party is...
I mean, that's the fight, right? Because we did what I'm warning you against.
And you know what the fight is on the Democrat Party? What's the fight right now? Kamala Harris versus Gavin Newsom versus fucking Josh Shapiro. That's the fight among Democrats.
Yeah, but dude, you always do this thing. Like liberals and Democrats always do this thing where they're like, when we're not talking about these characters being like large in the zeitgeist, we're so ooh-woo, we're so cute, we're so kawaii, we're so small. Why are you even attacking the socialists, this, that, the other? And then when the socialists do something that's huge, you're like,
what have they done that's huge?
There's
what power do they have
right now?
What power do they have?
Excuses for it.
What power do they have? Mamdani has endorsed Hakeem Jeffries. Mamdani is building a relationship with Kathy Hochul. Mamdani is going to work within the system. And he's the best you got. Okay. And he's not a he's not a tanky. He's not a tanky.
Communism is inherently poisonous. Okay. And if Mamdani governed the way that he was tweeting in 2019, then if this was the Vietnam War, then he'd govern like Karen Bass.
He would govern like Karen Bass. He would govern like any one of these other Democrats who, when they went very, very, very woke and far too left, they got fucking pummeled in the next elections, even by their own Democrats. There were, elections, taking them out of office for some of the allegations and shit and accusations and fuck ups.
Dude, it's the same analogy. Unfortunately, we've already had this conversation. So if you want to have it again, we can. But I do find it a little tiresome.
All right.
The analogy, which I said last time we talked about this, it's like having a house cat that you just feed over and over again. And depending on how much you feed it is how big it gets. Right now, I see you guys feeding a house cat and you say, hey, it's a house cat. Don't worry about it. But what I'm saying is that if you keep feeding this house cat, it's going to become the size of a tiger and it's going to eat your fucking face. And you're like, well, what's your evidence that if I continue to feed this house cat, it's going to eat my fucking face? Meanwhile, I'm over here and a tiger is fucking wrapping its fucking bladed fucking teeth around my throat.
And you're like, not the tabby cat, not the tabby cat.
Political team did.
No.
Don't get eaten by the tiger.
I love your analogy, right? So I love your now. Your analogy is so perfect. Your analogy is so perfect, right? So guys, listen to Conor's analogies because it actually is for once. Perhaps we'll look at this drawing, but for once, Conor's analogy is great. There's a tiger around his throat, and you are over there petting a kitten. And he's like, "Please, stop petting the kitten." That's a great analogy, Conor.
I'm getting eaten by a fucking tiger, and I don't want.
That's a great analogy.
I'm punching this tiger in the eye sockets repeatedly as it's mauling my throat,
and you're like, not the kitten, not the kitten. No. But you're like, hey, I'm gonna make another tiger for you to fight 5 to 10 years from now. Do you think fighting one tiger is fun? Do you know what's even better than one tiger? 2 tigers. So I'm gonna make another one for you to fight. You want to know the difference about this cat? This cat has one leg. It has the cat version of, I don't want to say it. Fuck. It's a low IQ cat.
Feline AIDS.
It's a very beautiful one. Everyone loves the cat, but the cat's not going to be a tiger. All right. It's a tabby cat. It comes as a cat, and the other one's a tiger, and it's eating you.
3 legs, and it's got HIV. Put it down. Stop petting it.
Okay, then how about we worry about the tiger that's attacking us?
I am worried about the tiger. I'm punching it in the eyes and jamming my thumb into its eye holes. That's what I do all day.
But you're also scratching the back of the other tiger right behind it. That's also a fully grown tiger. And you're like, please save me from the little cat.
Well, that's because power abhors a vacuum.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means. All right, show me your drawing. Israel, Palestine shit.
There's good tigers and bad tigers. There's tigers that will eat my.
So Jen asked this question. So Jen Wink, who I know is known in our communities. Jen Wink,
she's snitching on your community. She's like, they're talking crazy shit over there.
I don't fuck. Do you think Conor isn't trying to end MAGA? No, I think Conor's trying to end Trump. Conor is considering supporting JD Vance, considering supporting Ron DeSantis. That's MAGA. Conor is not trying to end MAGA. He just doesn't like Trump.
No, and also, yeah, you're right, because MAGA isn't going away. We've already had this conversation again.
Right, so you're not trying to end MAGA. So Jen is wrong. So Jen is wrong. You're trying to take MAGA and make it a little bit more palatable and be like JD Vance, Groyper adjacent. That's what you want. That's what you and P.F. Young want.
All right, so I'll just say it instead of asking Socratic shit. So I think that the reason why populism is working in our current political environment is because of shitty wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric. I think those are the four things that are motivating MAGA and motivating left-wing populists. And so as a result, I don't think MAGA, the movement that is motivated by these four things, I don't think they're going away. I do want a more competent, technocratic political leader to address wealth inequality, rapid demographic change.
You want MAGA. You just want to be
of the social fabric.
You just want to create an ideological framework to use MAGA. That's what you're doing.
So do you. That's politics, baby.
No, I want to destroy my enemies. That's what I want to do.
No, you don't. You want your enemies to become your friends. This is a democracy. No, you're going to get a gun and you're going to go shoot MAGA? Get the fuck out of here.
Not fucking violently, you idiot. I want to destroy them in terms of power.
You want to convert them to your political tribe.
I don't. The MAGA ideology, I want to destroy that. I want it to discredit it. I want it to be out of power.
You're not going to. Matter of fact, Zoran Mamdani, you know what his favorite thing was that he said during the Trump press conference where they mutually glazed each other for 45 minutes? He said, "Oh, it was actually crazy, Mr. President. People walked up to me on the streets of New York and they said that they voted for Trump in the general, but they voted
That's
for the
called
presidency.
pandering. That's called that's called pandering.
Economically populist.
Do you watch like advertisement like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was better than the leading brand? It's called pandering. That's not MAGA ideology. That's the ideology I want to end. I'm not trying to talk about like rounding up people or anything.
Okay, I'm trying to end economic populism. You know why? I want the people to be so happy that they don't even want economic populism. That's what I want. I want to design a technocratically competent society to the point that the working class and middle class don't want to rebel because they actually like their lives.
I'm getting triggered.
I want to lull the proletarian class to sleep. I don't want them to be revolutionary. I want the proletarian class to work 40 to 50 hours a week. I want their wife to not work at all or work part-time. I want them to be able to afford a reasonable standard of living and afford having children. And I want their kids to go to good schools, and I want their kids to have decent economic opportunities.
And you want white people to be a plurality. And you want white people to be plurality.
The slumbering proletarian giant that Hasan Piker and Zoran Mamdani want to shake awake to the point that they can overthrow the economic system. I want to pet that giant's back until he's lulled into beautiful sleep.
So if that's the case, what's wrong with Ro Khanna going on to Hasan's stream to lull the populist tiger asleep?
Well, I have to actually watch the content.
Oh, so there's nothing inherently wrong with going on Hasan and doing a little belly rub as long as you're trying to lull the populist tiger to sleep. Isn't that what you're doing?
Okay, but is he smart enough to do that? Because most of you guys are not smart enough to do that.
Fuck you. This is all ad hoc. You're inventing new things when you realize that your entire framework for what you're talking about is absolutely compatible with having amicable podcasts with lefties you don't like. You're like, oh shit, I have to come up with some other reason to distinguish my criticism of Pisco and all these other people in the Vanguard.
No, I think this is bullshit.
What's bullshit about it?
This is total bullshit because I said in reference to the Vanguard thing, nobody gives a fuck that you're talking to the Vanguard. Nobody would give a fuck if you went on to Hasan Piker. The question is whether or not you would actually differentiate your positions to the point that you guys don't seem like you're friends.
Well, hang on a second. Wait a second. So the Hasan, we'll talk about whether that's a criticism that's the last. Does Hasan's base, do the people who watch him, do they have genuine economic concerns and genuine things that we ought to appeal to? Okay. So then what exactly is wrong? If it's okay for Mamdani to go to the, and I think it's fine for him to go to the White House as an envoy of New York City, meeting with the purported president of the United States, and to have this little conversation and to kind of signal and do the kind of virtue signal of, oh, everyone cares about the same shit type deal that every politician does. What's wrong with that for lefties and for libs trying to actually bring into the fold the more populist and disaffected members of the left?
Because that's like being in 39 Germany and being like, there's this socialist critic of Adolf Hitler, And he went up to Berlin, and then he was kind of, he talked some crazy shit about Hitler like a few times, and he still said that he has those beliefs. But realistically, he was cozying up to Hitler in 39 because he wants some territorial concessions. He wants Hitler to let him keep a few Jews. He wants Hitler to give him some like redistributive economic policy so he can implement the socialist agenda. And so that's like the question. This is why a lot of people get frustrated with the left is like, is Donald Trump a megalomaniacal, incompetent, degenerate freak who is killing hundreds of thousands of people through incompetence and who is fascistic in his political leanings, or is he somebody that you need to kiss the ring for in order to get concessions?
Yeah, I see. Like, whenever you get the chance to frame it, sure, now you can make the historical analogy. And Rokana and me and all these people, we're not trying to appeal to the disaffected people with genuine concerns that are fueling these movements. We are like, I don't know, the failing politicians who are giving concessions to Hitler. Okay, who's getting sock puppeted? On what basis are you to say? Why don't I say you're getting sock puppeted by the Tealite, Yarvanite class of fucking techno fascists?
You're right. I'm being raped by a tiger right now, Pisco. I am being sodomized by a giant tiger, and I am saying, Pisco, look out! That house cat might become a giant tiger and start to sodomize you. And you're like, no, it's fine. It's totally fine.
But you're also scratching.
I will not be sodomized by the tiger.
But you're also scratching the bottom of the tiger's chin, who's currently graping you.
It's a different. Hey,
let me finish it. Wait, no. You're scratching his chin, saying, "Daddy, chill." That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. No. Meanwhile, yes, that's what you're doing.
Maybe the tiger has some good ideas in some points.
I mean, okay. Prediction time. If I were to ever to collab with Hasan, what would the reaction be in any context?
It depends on how hard you went. If you guys were like best buddies and yucking it up and having a good time, it would be you're a
more or less how I do it with you. More or less how I engage with you.
I'm not finish the fucking sentence that you're probably asking for. You're a liberal trader who's sucking up to Hasan in order to steal some of his audience. You're a clout demon who doesn't care how far left your audience goes.
Right. If I had like
that would be it, unless it was a contentious conversation.
If it were a friendly conversation, like I'm having you, like, no, I'll push back. Listen, you should vote for Democrats.
If it was a friendly conversation, people would accuse you of being a clout demon trying to steal the lefty audience because you don't care about the ideology or the principles. You just care about growing your audience.
And what you do.
By the way, I heard this criticism when you were going on with Crystal Ball and Kyle Kalinske.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think
I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm just describing what the criticism would be.
I think that what some people are proposing is a complete fortress arc for liberals and not to talk to in friendly manners with people with whom they disagree. And I can understand that for certain types of people. I can I have that thought with the MAGA people. I guess I just see MAGA as worse than you do. I guess I think MAGA is worse than what a lot of people think.
Dude, I spend 70% of my time bitching about MAGA. What are we talking about here?
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying other people. I don't think
I spend 70% of my time saying I'm currently being sodomized by a tiger, and I really wish he would get out of my butthole. Like,
but also, Daddy chill. But also, Daddy chill, and maybe maybe you're the next tiger in line. I'm going to give the keys to the castle. This is
actually an interesting part of the conversation. This is an interesting part of the conversation. So I believe in Burkean conservatism, which basically means deferring to the status quo, but and then criticizing and needling progressives and liberals and implementing the good ideas and getting rid of the bad ideas. That's Burkean conservatism. Okay. Now, liberalism.
Wait, can you just repeat the last part of that? So Burkean conservatism is all that plus getting rid of bad ideas and getting good ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as an example, though. Liberalism is oftentimes rooted in maximal human freedom. We just disagree on where those lines are. Here's a silly, but I think informative mind exercise. Let's say that you could generate, I'll just use sanitized terms for the sake of the conversation. Let's say that you could generate illicit pornography from AI that did not technically hurt anyone. My argument would be, this is bad for your brain. It's bad for neuroplasticity. Even if you don't harm any other people, you're technically harming yourself.
Any more than regular porn?
Reasons why we prohibit these behaviors.
Any more than regular porn?
What's that?
Any more than regular commercial consensual porn?
Is illicit pornography? I'm probably, if I'm unclear, I'm talking about child pornography.
Oh, I thought you were talking about AI deepfakes.
No, I'm talking about let's move it to the most extreme example just for the sake of the example. So with this most extreme example, technically nobody's getting hurt except for the and we could change it to drugs if that makes you more comfortable. Technically nobody is getting hurt except for the person who's involving themselves. If you are to impose a state limit on their behavior, you're imposing on them from the state, and arguably the harm from the state, being incarcerated, fines, social stigma, all that kind of stuff, that's going to be, super bad for the individual. So I guess my question to you is, I can appeal to a conservative reason for why this behavior should be prohibited. What is your liberal rationale? Do you believe that this behavior should be prohibited? And then if so, why, from your liberal framework?
So I'm not sure that I have a strong stance on the exact fact pattern that you're talking about. I do think that there's a basis. You can go with
hard drugs if that makes it easier.
No. But let me contend with it. I'm not one to shy away from hypotheticals in that context. I think that there is definitely a liberal framework to deal with these kinds of things because, of course, notwithstanding liberty, unless you're some kind of like dipshit libertarians, the very ones that you want to fucking put in office, you believe in ordered liberty and constitutional liberty, and that of course conceptualizes a notion of harm to self. In fact, I think that notwithstanding the herd immunity aspects to like vaccination things, I think that there's an independent government interest in one's self. Now, ultimately, I think that there's a big showing the government needs to show for a huge infringement on a protected core liberty. I do think that the per se banning of CSAM is justified under a theory of production harm. And that production harm relates to actual children being abused. And so I do think that the current framework for that banning doesn't apply to the AI stuff. However, there are notions of obscenity. And I think at some level, I would agree with certain levels of banning of obscenity. And that is certain content that is so depraved, so out there to be commercialized that the government has an interest, not just in terms of production harm, but an interest in, in societal, individuals, mental health, that kind of stuff. An actual government ban, though, I'm not sure that I would go that far. I have such a strong value for free inquiry, free speech, and these kinds of rights. I'm concerned not about the particular content that might be produced, but about who decides the line. And I think that if I am going to draw a line, I want it to be based on objective and neutral criteria, and mere disgust, that I don't know is going to cross the line for a per se ban. Would I ban sort of like public broadcast of it? Yes, 100%. Would I try to regulate it? Yes, for sure. But I'm not sure. I would need more facts about the harms related to it. But that's kind of my preliminary take. Tell me what you think. There's a framework for it. There is a framework for it.
That's perfectly fine. And I'll get to what I'm actually trying to illustrate. So there are things that, and by the way, I just disagree with you here. So it's not a question of, I think you're a bad guy or I'm going to moral frog about it or whatever. I think that disgust can be something that motivates our rationalizations for why we engage in certain behaviors or prohibit.
That's sorry. You didn't hear me. You did not hear me. So I'm not saying that doesn't occur. That of course, disgust will of course motivate one's behavior. The question is, do I trust the government itself as a powers concern to do these line drawings instead of things like production harm, instead of things like defamatory statements, instead of things like the proximity in terms of incitement, instead of things like harassment dealing with privacy or intentional infliction of fear, just do it on disgust itself. It's not a question of whether or not it rationally motivates action. I agree with you that it does. The question is, do we trust the government to draw lines of disgust? Because once we allow subjective disgust to be something that the government controls, well, I'm disgusted by communism. I'm disgusted by fascism. I'm disgusted by a great many of ideologies that I can directly tie to harm. That's what I'm concerned about. Not that I think that this is good stuff or that I think that it's something that people should consume. It's a question of institutional competency. Is the government the right person to enforce restrictions on speech that are ultimately just premised on disgust by itself?
Sure. You're like the last true liberal. But let's let me ask another question that I think, and I'll tell you where I'm going before we even go there. That way we don't have to spend time. And people are like, where's Conor going? He's talking so much and saying nothing. Hey, fuck you, chatter, by the way, whoever says that.
I do that too, so we're good.
Excellent. So they should be used to it. The what I was going to say is the point of what I'm asking is that I don't think liberalism is an excellent place to start. Okay. Liberalism emphasizes the sovereignty of the individual. It emphasizes our conscious experience. It focuses on dignity. It focuses on making sure that the powers that be don't abuse the individual in the name of the public good. It sets reasonable limitations on the actions of the government. Liberalism is an excellent place to start. However, I do think that it's insufficient for a good human life. And I think that morality
I agree.
And
but I agree.
Philosophy, religion, all these kinds of things, and some of these are nested in political persuasions like social conservatism. So that's where I feel like liberalism is insufficient, and you have to turn to these other things.
Well, liberalism is a style
conservative of rooted.
Sorry, I just want to say, like, liberalism is not a philosophy that is pretending to be a theory of everything with respect to morality. It is a structure of, or a framework for looking at rights, and a framework for looking about the relationship between the state and the people. I mean, that's what it is, and it isn't anything more.
Yeah. So, but I want to ask you something that might be rooted a little bit more in a social conservative perspective. So, with social conservatism, the social promotion of like what they would believe is pro-social behavior that's rooted in religion. I view religion as I'm not a literalist. Okay. I'm not a literalist. I'm a deist. I believe in a creative force that set things in order, but I don't really believe in an afterlife. I don't think Jesus is the Messiah. I think effectively it's a mythology, but I think that this mythology is important. And I see r-slurs in my chat constantly arguing that we can totally ignore religion as a vehicle for morality, and yet they're totally lost degenerates themselves. And so I guess my question is like, what is your perception of religion? Are you completely hostile to it? Do you view it as a necessary evil? Do you view it as a vehicle for morality? What's your perception of it?
I take a Marxian view on religion. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed, a sigh of the oppressed creature.
It's the opiate of the masses.
Listen, I'm fucking around. Listen, I ultimately view religion and mythologies and myth making as human beings attempt to explain that which they cannot explain, and to produce meaning where there is fear and uncertainty. I think that fear is almost defined by uncertainty. Uncertainty, in other words, is fear. Why are you afraid of the dark? Because you don't know what's behind it, right? Like fear and uncertainty go one and one. And I think religion is a term that is meant to capture humans' various different attempts to explain phenomena, explain value, explain meaning. And as such, I don't think it's really helpful to say something like religion is bad or religion is good generally, unless you're being a little bit more specific about what you mean. If what you mean by religion is bad or something is just like closed systems of thought are bad, maybe I could say that's kind of like it's my preference. It's my preference. I think that those kinds of closed systems of thoughts that most religions inhabit aren't net good. I don't think that they're net good. There are aspects about certain religious philosophies, certain religious communities that are very positive. I think that one thing that secular communities often, though it's not necessary they not have this, but they do lack, is a sense of community. That's not all. I just want to say that sometimes I feel that there is a shared sense of ritual, a shared sense of togetherness, of peoplehood that is lost absent some of these traditions and rituals. But I think that is, you don't need religion for that stuff, for this kind of very innate form of human societal, almost a kind of like grooming, a grooming within the tribe. So my answer to that is, it depends. I think that religion has been the cause of a lot of harm over the course of years. It's been the cause of some good. And ultimately, I don't think it should guide our lives.
Yeah, so I have a more positive view of religion where, once again, not a literalist, but I was raised in the church. I went to church every Sunday, went to plenty of Sunday schools. And there's just things that are, I think we could look at it from like a utilitarian level and basically say, like, is this pro-social behavior that we want to engender in our society? And we could make it as simple as like the 10 Commandments, right? That thou shalt not steal. Do we want a society that accepts or promotes or looks the other way in reference to theft? Probably not, right? Same thing with, thou shalt not lie. So do we want a society in which lying is commonplace, misrepresenting the truth in order to gain social benefit? And these societies exist, by the way. That's like another thing.
Yeah, so why does God lie all the time? And why does, and also you're picking some of the more general features of how human societies have always, like, find me a human society where theft is allowed or encouraged. Find me where lying is allowed or encouraged.
I mean, Russia is a perfect example of a kleptocratic society.
What I mean, though, there is like, yeah, in that situation, there is such a power disparity that, you're just able to take, but even among equals, there are still ways in which people can get, like, think about Nazi Germany, right? Even Nazi Germany. There were ways in which people on the same class, when the state wasn't intervening, for them to settle these kind of property disputes. And in general, they run their society among equals, right? Among people of the same sphere, among silverbacks versus silverbacks, among oligarchs versus oligarchs, where theft is wrong and stealing is wrong among equals. So I grant you that. But I'm just saying the harder ones to justify are like, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods or wife. Like, isn't that the basis for capitalism? At least the goods part. So I'm not so sure.
Well, hold up. Because I think specifically it is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And there's actually like an evolutionary psychology explaining to this that I actually enjoy a lot. So it's believed that the 10 Commandments were effectively Moses because he was the tribal chieftain of Israel when they were leaving Egypt and going into Israel and Judea, right? Or what would be Israel and Judea. And so the argument is that, like, well, tribal chieftains were the people who were deciding disputes. And so the 10 Commandments are not so much actually God telling Moses to tell the people what the 10 best rules are in order to live life. It's actually Moses getting sick of resolving the same disputes over and over and over and over again. So he codified them in writing.
Right,
so
right, Connor. But we can
most of the shit.
But we can make a better list. Wait. I know, but we can make a better list. We can
make a better list,
yeah,
for sure. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't view, because for me, I'm like a history nerd. I am in awe of the fact that if you look at, Roman common law, or if you look at Greek common law, or if you look at Christian common law, you can effectively draw like a civilizational temporal line all the way back to, ancient Egypt and Judea and Samaria. That's amazing. It's amazing that we had these concepts.
Yeah, it's cool.
Law,
but what do we make of it?
And justice that go back like 3,500 years.
My question for you is the one that the teachers always ask. So what? So what that we can do that?
And you should.
I think it's dope. No, I agree it's dope. But like, why does that?
But also
give you a bonus?
Chesterton Spence.
What?
So are you familiar with somebody introduced me to it a couple of weeks ago? Are you aware of the concept of Chesterton Spence?
No.
Okay. So I think it's actually like a legalistic concept, but the whole point is you don't remove offense unless you know what it blocks out. Okay. And this is like an inherently conservative view. And what I would say is that some of the tension between conservatives and liberals right now is we feel like liberals and progressives have just blasted away all the fences, and they were like, we don't need any of this shit. And so as a result, we're getting, old problems that were previously prohibited.
Yeah, but religion is compatible with liberalism. I don't understand.
This might be a different point.
Maybe I'm not understanding. So people will say that like liberalism is the reason this or that. Like, prove it. It seems like for the longest time, most of our societies, even now, the politicians are mostly religious. People in charge are mostly religious. We still have a prayer at every single congressional session. Most societies, they even have, like, in Germany, the Christian Democratic Party. Our societies are religious. And if you look back further in time, there have been plenty of liberal societies that have been largely religious. In the UK, the head of the state, the king, is also the head of the church, of the Anglican Church. So I don't understand this notion that liberalism is the antithesis to religion. Liberalism is compatible with religious thought and religious belief and religious practice.
Well, I don't even know if this is necessarily true. And I'm pretty sure if I look up the stats on secularization and church attendance, effectively it's gone from, like, in the past 2 or 3 generations, like probably early 20th century.
But why is that liberalism's fault?
Church attendance was at, like, weekly 90%.
Yes, but why is that liberalism's fault? That's just correlation.
Inverse.
That's just correlation.
Sure. And by the way, I'm not arguing that everybody needs to return to church. I don't go to church weekly. The point is, though, that, like, there's, in reference to Chesterton's fence, let me just revisit that so I can try to make the point that I'm trying to make, is that there's times that we can take down the fence. And I think that we should have a sober, sane, rational, intellectual conversation about when we could take down the fence, right? So in reference to homosexuality, let's use this as an example. The reason why people probably put up the fence in the ancient world was because we didn't have the same level of, like, sanitary practices that we have in the modern day. We didn't have condoms to the same degree that we do. We didn't have, like, the same level.
Like in Greece and Japan, they had gay stuff there. They had, I'm sure, less.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But the Jewish, the Abrahamic prohibition against homosexuality was likely a correlation with disease. Same thing with, like, shellfish and pig.
You need to prove that.
No, I don't. So. Because
so you can just say it. You can just say it.
What do you? I don't even want to get into this because, like, why do you think shellfish were prohibited in the ancient world? Because Frank ate a shellfish and he had an allergic reaction and he fucking died. Why was
I'm saying don't you have
in the ancient world? It's because it was improperly cooked and they fucking died. That's why that shit was prohibited.
You're just saying it. Why did they take people's? Why did they circumcise people? Take people's foreskins off?
Because Abraham had a weird looking dick.
No, so it's your false contention, or I don't know, assumption that religious beliefs are premised on some kind of underlying rational set of inferences and practices.
Yeah, phimosis. Yeah.
But what justifies that? Dick. No, but that is a pure aesthetics. That would belie your notion that there's some, like, underlying health rationale.
No, phimosis is a real medical condition that can be painful. When the hood of your foreskin fuses to your dick tip, and then your penis continues to grow.
And circumcision can gets
boners. It's painful.
Yeah, circumcision
is like a real medical condition that occurs in, like, 2 to 10% of the population.
And circumcision cannot be the cause of infection and disease and stuff, especially back in the day with older instruments.
No, it can be, but a properly done circumcision can prevent phimosis.
Okay, but what is it really your contention that the religious practices from the Bible are based in some rational or logical set of choices that support human flourishing in some kind?
They're not purely rational, but I do think that they oftentimes are rooted in a level of, like, observation of, like, moral action and their consequences, of course.
All right, I don't know what justifies that inference. You're just assuming it. Fair?
No, no, it's actually perfectly rational. So sorry, Muhammad, peace be upon him, okay, when he came into the pagan Arabian world that was a part of the Eastern Roman Empire, which was largely Christian, in his pagan sect of the world, infanticide, female infanticide was still practiced. And so if people had children and they were women, because of inheritance laws, they would take the infants, they would put them inside clay pots, they would walk them out to the desert, and they would kill them.
Yeah, this was the practice of pre-Islamic Arabia.
There's an evolutionary psychological reason why people would do that, but there's also a reason why, because Muhammad, peace be upon him, would sympathize and empathize with the women who are being killed and therefore come up with a social prohibition against that practice as a part of his religion. It was a moral analysis of real facts. So like how are you disconnecting? How are you saying every religious prescription is completely irrational?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're all irrational. Or
well, you're saying prove every religious prescription is rational.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying in any given instance, I think it's the burden of proof on the person promoting it to suggest that the origin of it comes from some ultimately humanistic
improperly cooked pork. Follow me down this logic train, because this is actually frustrating.
I'm going to grant the health stuff. I'm going to grant all the health stuff.
Can you? Because we were talking about homosexuality and we were talking about Chesterton's fence, right?
Yeah,
that was the original thing. Okay, so let's get back to that real quick. So, human sexual sanitary practices in the ancient world are probably not what they are today. Okay, and in the past 200 years, we have invented condoms, douches, indoor plumbing, although arguably that was around at the time, but obviously we've enhanced it a lot in the past 2 centuries. We have all these enhancements that have technologically allowed us to get over the sanitary practices that were, or excuse me, the lack of sanitary practices that made homosexuality potentially deadly in the ancient world. Okay, so what we can do from a Chesterton's fence analysis is we can say homosexuality was prohibited not because it was like a intelligent understanding of human nature and the divine creator of the world gave us this prohibition because gay people are gross. We can say this was likely an evolutionary psychological argument that we have surpassed through technology.
This is heresy.
And therefore, we can.
This is heresy. This is heresy. This is revisionism. This is heresy.
Correct. I'm not a religious literalist.
Okay, but all you're doing, right? All you're doing is, and you think you're smarter than everyone, is you are editing what they take to be the inherent word of God, or at least divinely inspired word of God. And so, like, you're saying, I know what these people meant. I know what the people
Correct.
Okay, but that would be anathema to any religious person who was serious about their conviction.
Yeah, it would be anathema to any literalist. Anybody who thinks that the planet is 6,000 years old, anybody who thinks that Jesus Christ or Muhammad or Moses or whatever, they literally heard the voice of the creator of the universe, that you're right. This would be against their beliefs.
So if you feel confident to edit the Bible with a scalpel, I'm just going to do the same thing.
Yeah, but yours is worse than mine.
Okay, so it all gets ground down into a moral argument. So what do we need the religion for?
Correct. No, because of a conservative perspective, which effectively says there's a reason why we created these fences and created these rules.
Okay, all right. So
hubris. Hold on. The hubris of modern people is believing, somebody said it, there are no fences, there are no rules. We can create all of the.
But in any given instance, basically, are you talking about burdens here? So burdens. Who has the burden to show to bring down the fence? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm saying that, yeah, it's incumbent upon progressives and liberals who want to bring down a fence to argue why it will not cause a disaster.
All right, so fine. I could even say that I agree with that you're building from a structure, not for the religious kind of extrapolations that you've had, but this notion of something that has undergirded our society. If we're going to change something in a radical way, there should be reasons for it, and the people who want to get rid of it should produce those reasons. That's fine as an assumption. I'm not against that assumption. I think it's weird how you're tying it into the doctrine itself, but fine, if you want to go that way, you can go ahead. I don't understand what it has to do with fucking liberalism, because liberalism doesn't make prescriptions of those kinds. It's not liberals who have, from the perspective of liberalism, the framework, the structure, they're perhaps people who are consider themselves liberals who have, attacked religion and what have you. But the structure of liberalism is totally compatible with religious ideology, with religious thought. And so in what sense are you attacking liberalism for the fault of lack of religiosity or whatever, what have you? Given two things. Given the fact that religious thought is compatible with it, and there's nothing, in fact, it would be incompatible with liberalism for the government actively to go against religion. That it would be, in other words, freedom of religion is one of the liberties entailed by liberalism. And so fact number one is religious acceptance is not, or at least we should not allow our government to affect those things. And liberalism supports the freedom of religion. And then number two, the fact that like lack of religiosity is occurring in Western society, that you're just trying to track a correlation and causation. You haven't even done the building blocks of establishing a link there. So help me out with those, what I think are two pretty big gaps.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to directly answer it, but I think this is at the heart of what we're arguing about. So if you want me to repeat myself or answer it differently, let me know. But it is my perspective that the conservatives, regardless of time period, are the people who are staring at all of these proverbial or metaphorical fences, and they're saying, we should keep these fences. Now, some of those fences are irrational. Some of those fences don't make sense anymore. I think homosexuality, as an example, is a fence that no longer makes sense.
All right, which fence makes sense that liberals are trying to tear down?
Well, I mean, homosexuality is also transsexuality and homosexuality are obviously two of the fences that have happened in the past 50 years.
Okay, got it. So, but you agree that those fences, that people should be allowed to be trans and that people should be allowed to be gay.
But there's details to this and there's nuances to this, which I don't think that you're calculating because you kind of want to gloss them over. You understand that like libertarian and liberals and non-religious conservatives are okay with tearing down the trans fence exclusively for adults, right?
Yeah. No.
And that a shitload of the contention and a shitload of the cultural backlash over the past decade has been specifically about trans kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's how people have tried to frame it, and that's how they've always done it. They did that with homosexuality too, Counter. They said, this is about the kids, about protecting kids, gay people abuse kids, and the reason people are gay is because of abuse from early years, and so this is really just a parenting issue. So yeah, I understand that they framed it as a kid issue, and I can understand even in the gay context, even the trans context, genuine concerns on that front. I just don't understand like what is the fence that liberals are trying to tear down from the structural perspective of liberalism that conservatives are trying to keep up, that you think is going to unleash this parade of horribles.
Well, I mean, we could actually just go down like a list of them. And by the way, it might not even be liberals who are necessarily doing it. It could, in fact, be progressives. And I do differentiate liberals, progressives, and leftists separately. But because of our political binary, liberals are oftentimes in a political coalition with progressives and leftists, right? So when you refer to
liberal, so then we just need to clarify terms. When you talk about liberals, are you talking about the political left in America, or are you talking about liberalism like a doctrine of the structure of ordered liberty and government?
I think for the sake of this conversation, we should probably say the left wing of America.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's going to get too messy.
All right. So then I'm with you. Go.
Okay. So the left wing of America, arguably, when it comes to gay rights, which I agree with, but trans rights, which we need to be nuanced about, illicit drug consumption, and immigration, those are the fences that we're fighting over right now as a society.
Okay, so this is stupid because when you talk about immigration,
fuck you. There's nothing wrong with what I just said.
Yes. So you're pretending that immigration is this old as fucking dirt fence that liberals are trying to tear down, and by which you mean the political left. And there's two huge problems.
I mean, it's happened since 65.
There are two humongous Oh my God. You're actually believing Fuentes on the Immigration Nationality Act and Hart-Celler. This is how far your Fuentes rot has gotten.
It's descriptive.
You just cited
it's
the
not
Fuentes.
Even moral.
You just
It's
cited the Fuentes talking point of the Hart-Celler Act. You just did it when he totally lies about that.
If you look at demographics, it's undeniable that the Hart-Celler Act changed the demographic content of people who immigrated to this country. I'm not even saying good or bad. I'm not even saying good or bad. You're making an additional leap.
No, you heard this from Fuentes. I know it. I know I listened to Fuentes, bro.
It doesn't matter where I heard it from if it's descriptively true and if I'm not making a moral claim about it. You're the one jumping to a moral perspective on it.
So here's the problem. So problem number one is, for most of human society, open borders, including in America. The first restrictive immigration law in America, the Page Act, 1875. For most of our history, from the framers to that point, no restrictive immigration laws in America. People just come across. So you're trying to cite this long.
Nobody else had the technology to come across. What the
so
fuck
then,
are you
okay,
talking about?
wait. If that's the case, then don't say this is a rule as old as time. Don't say that then. It doesn't get all of this.
Hold on.
No, it isn't.
Do I need to pull up wolf migration patterns for you? Like, dude,
what does that matter? Wolves don't have.
Do I need to pull up the history of every empire on Earth? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? You're saying that people haven't collectivized,
you could just go places
tribally based off of ethno-religious background.
That's different. That is different. That's true within borders.
How is that different?
That's true within America. That's true. That's true of human society. That's true of creatures.
What are you arguing?
You are conflating this tribal associative sort of natural biology sense of migratory patterns with the immigration problem. Different things, Connor. Different things. That's
why are they different? Literally the argument. And by the way, I still haven't even staked out my position on this at all. I've been descriptive, but you're attacking it.
You're
descriptions on it.
No, but hold on. You are making it.
How is the argument exclusively from immigration hawks? Not. We have a certain we have a multitude of ethnicities, obviously, but we also have a religious one religion that dominates the demographics of the United States of America. And if we allow mass unfettered immigration from Central and South America, which I find silly, but also from the Middle East and North Africa, we will be changing the ethno-religious constituency of the United States of America and therefore changing our destiny into the future in perpetuity. That's actually their argument, regardless of whether or not you assign it a certain moral weight.
I'm not addressing that argument yet. I will. I'm addressing its historical pedigree, or the historical pedigree that you are trying to assign to immigration itself. Now, you did a very weasel thing.
I'm trying to describe it, and you're saying it's wrong before we even get past the description.
Your description of it having a historical pedigree is wrong. That's what's wrong. You've made this structure, which I've tentatively think makes sense, which is don't tear down fence or don't remove things that you don't know what they are or what their benefits are. Think about it before you do. That's something that makes sense. And one of those examples is, well, liberals, by which you mean the political left in America, are trying to tear down the fence of immigration. And that is ascribing to it the kind of historical pedigree that you're giving to the times of Abraham. That's the kind of the kinds of examples you were using were Abrahamic religion.
Here's where I know this is bullshit. You like to argue very confidently, but here's where I know that this is bullshit. Benjamin Franklin was one of the founders of this nation. He was bitching about mass German immigration as soon as the founding of the nation happened.
Yeah, so what?
All these conversations. No. There was all these conversations about Native American integration. There was all these conversations about Mexican integration into the United States. There was all these conversations. There was the Chinese Exclusion Act, which we would need to look up for. So pretend
I know about that.
Actually, the founding fathers were agnostic on the ethno-religious makeup of the people coming to the United States of America.
That's
the only
that's not what I'm saying.
That is true.
Didn't say that.
Thomas Jefferson.
Hang on.
Everybody else had a fucking opinion.
So this is the problem. This is why people call me a pedant, is because people will sneak into the conversation concepts that aren't heard when they say the word. So when you say liberals are trying to tear down immigration and it's a fence that has the historical pedigree going down back to the days of Abraham or some other time immemorial type style idea, what everyone hears is immigration from the point of view of nations, immigration from the point of view of restrictive immigration laws. That's what everybody hears. Now, what you just said, and what I wouldn't uncover if I wasn't specific with my language, is something different, which is concerns regarding religious ethnic groups and being part of an ethnic heritage and race of people who is at least powerful. Yes, that concern tracks, or hysteria, some might say, tracks back thousands of years, but it's not what you said. What you said was immigration.
I mean, literally, I just Googled, when was the first American immigration
Act.
law, and it was...
No. Shut the fuck up.
And it had what to do I with said, race.
Shut the fuck up. I did not say the first immigration law. What were the words I chose?
I don't even know. It's
because you don't fucking listen. Because you don't fucking. So shut the fuck up. No, you just made a claim. This is why. Because people will just lie. Counter.
Isn't historically true.
Counter. You just lied. I didn't say, or you didn't listen. I don't know which is worse. No, I said the first restrictive immigration law, by which I mean the border control. So look up the Page Act right now. Go to Wikipedia.
No, the 1799 Act. No.
You're talking about the Aliens and Sedition Act.
I'll be a pedant. So 1799 Immigration Act specifies that free white persons are the only people who can be naturalized in the United States.
Is that an immigration?
If a black person comes to the United States, can they become a part of our nation, Pisco?
Connor, is that a natural? No? Connor, would it restrict
yes or no?
So
they couldn't. Yes,
they could come. They could come. They could. Connor, they couldn't become a U.S. citizen. What did you just say there? Look at that sleight of hand. Sneaky shit from you. Sneaky as fuck. Counter. No, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not. Counter. I'm not being nice anymore. That's a naturalization law, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not an immigration law, is it?
I mean, I'll take a
Is
look.
it an immigration law or not? Is it? What is immigration?
Act of 1799.
Is what you just described immigration or naturalization? Which is it?
Let me take a look.
No. What? Just answer the question. Look at me and answer the question.
I have to Google it.
No, you know what it is. It's not immigration to change status to become a citizen. That's naturalization. When you immigrate somewhere, you physically move to it to live there permanently. You know that's what immigration is. You don't need to look that up. Are you a stupid person?
No, I do need to look it up.
You don't need to look that up.
You've been in the debate space for way too long because you keep assuming bad faith where none exists.
Because you're trying to dunk on me right now, and you're the one actually. So you just tried to fact check me in real time to say you're wrong. Actually, from the framing, we've had restrictive immigration laws, and what you just pulled up to try to dunk on me is a total sleight of hand, which are the naturalization laws restricting to a given race, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about or what you purport to be talking about, which aren't restrictions on naturalization, restrictions on immigration.
This isn't even like relevant to the original conversation, but I'll read it for you. It's fine. This is an AI overview. Okay. So the first U.S. immigration law was the Naturalization Act of 1790, which established the first uniform rules of U.S. citizenship, allowing free white persons who resided in the U.S. for 2 years and showed good moral character to become citizens, also granting citizenship to their children under 21 and children born abroad to citizens.
This foundational law, like I don't know what this is.
The United States to regulate naturalization was limited to white Europeans and set the stage for future and more restrictive immigration policies. Also, before you freak out and start screaming and like virtue signaling to your chat, would you say that a residency requirement has something to do with immigration?
No.
Residency has nothing to do with
hang on,
immigration.
Hang on. So residency requirements for purposes of naturalization doesn't have to do with immigration. Restrictive immigration.
Who do you think is being naturalized after they've resided in the United States?
That's different. The laws I'm talking.
You think it's Americans who have always lived in the United States?
I don't know if you got this from. I don't know if you got this. I don't know if you got this from Destiny, where you do this word association. So you do a word association of immigration. Yeah, when you know what I'm talking about here. What we're talking about are people traveling to a place to live there permanently, and in the context of residency requirements for naturalization, that's residency is not known as immigration. Someone could be a resident for their entire life.
If you move someplace in order to live someplace permanently, what's that called, Pisco?
Yeah. If what's that? What you just said? If you what?
If you move that,
right.
In order to live there permanently.
So here, I'm about to just completely demolish you. Can you be a resident can you be born in this country? At that time, could you be born in this country to certain types of people and not be a citizen of the United States?
Yeah.
Okay. That was true back then. So you could be a resident having never lived anywhere else but the United States and be subject to the naturalization laws, couldn't you?
Sorry, you're going to have to ask that again. I was Googling something.
They're different concepts. Immigration relates to people coming into the country to live there permanently. Now, residency requirements apply both to those kinds of people, but also other types of people. And so what you're trying to do here is dodge what it was an enormous blunder on your part, which is to try to fact check me on what I meant as though I were wrong by your AI summaries. So why don't you just grant me my point?
Does this work for your audience? Is your audience retarded too? Do you have like Andrew Wilson's liberal audience? Like, do they say like, because this is something I'm just going to be disrespectful to you the same way I was disrespectful to Andrew Wilson. Does halfway through an argument to saying like, I demolished you, I annihilated your butthole with this argument. Do you find like a bunch of like retards in your chat being like, yeah, you
was
did
America
annihilate
was
his
America
butthole.
was America
Like,
open borders? Wait, so you don't even dispute
cringe,
this.
I'm not gonna lie.
So when I said the first restrictive immigration law was in 1875 and 1870s, do you dispute that?
Yeah, I dispute it.
Name
Yes.
Okay, what's one restrictive immigration law?
I would say that residency applies to immigrants, and therefore it's an immigration law. There's nothing funny about it.
Okay, so let me just change the wording. So we can
show
who's working.
Immigration are separate concepts.
Yes, they're separate.
Divorced as oil and water.
They're separate. So let's just show who's playing word games.
Silly.
Let's show who's playing word games. Do you agree that America was open borders until 1870s?
No.
Oh. What were the restrictive immigration laws that prevented people from entering into the country physically?
I would say I don't know what the laws on the books were, but I would say.
So how would you know? How would you know?
American territory was actually pretty well defined during the time of the 13 colonies.
Sorry,
Native Americans were not prohibited within the borders of the United States.
So wait, hang on. The question is, were there restrictive laws that prevented people from entering into the country physically until the 1870s? I asked that question, and your answer was Native Americans were allowed to leave their reservations. Now, can you understand why there's
reservations didn't even exist at the time? And I
counter. Let me talk, okay? You said that it was well defined for that natives where their lands were. You said that, and then you said they were allowed to leave their lands. Now, can you understand why that was the dumbest fucking answer you could have given to
allowed into the borders of the United States?
Okay, so it's your position that the native lands, that these people were prevented from entering into the United States, and you would consider that their tribal lands were not part of the United States of America?
At that time, yeah.
Wait a second. So are you under the impression that tribal lands under American law are not part of the geographical territory of the United States?
Okay, in the early 18th and 17th century or whatever, Native American territories were not considered a part of the United States.
Okay, so just so that you're aware about the state of native lands, it is true that native lands aren't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. It's different. So it's a different set of sovereigns at issue, but it is part of United States land. It's part of the United States territory. You understand? Like right now, for example,
you're saying that west of Appalachia, the United States was claiming that territory as its own. I already know you're historically incorrect.
Wait a second.
I don't even know
Wait a second. Not if it's outside the country. Not if it's outside America's land. You didn't say that.
Shit.
You didn't say that.
Just in case your audience is retarded, I'll explain it to you. Okay. So Pisco asked the question: did the United States have restrictive immigration laws prior to 18 whatever the fuck?
70s.
And I brought up Native Americans as being people who were prohibited from freely traveling within the United States of America. And I'm finding a law prohibiting Native Americans from traveling within the Commonwealth of the United States as early as 1830. And I almost guarantee you that I can find laws probably before the existence of the United States.
What's the law called? What's the law called?
Native Americans from living in the territories of the 13 colonies. And by the way,
what's the law called?
What's the law called? You're supposed to be talking about defense and homosexuality.
So no, we are not moving off this topic, Connor, because what you tried to do was dishonest, and you know it was dishonest. You know what you were trying to do was dishonest.
5 hours and 15 minutes, so I might have to wrap up in a second.
Connor, you know what you just did was completely dishonest. And me being upset or angry about it, yes, it was. Yes, it 100% was.
I'm not even angry.
Listen, you might not be angry. What you tried to do just then was chicken shit. And you're playing word games now, and you're going to produce to me the law that you say you found regarding Native Americans.
Okay.
What's the law called?
Okay. First U.S. law about Native Americans.
No, you said you had a law from the 1830s.
I did.
Wait, where did you get that from? What were you looking at? AI?
Yeah. Let me find the 1831. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 was the one that I pulled up.
Indian Removal Act 1830. This is Wikipedia.
Also, I could do like English colonial
law as
laws against Native Americans.
The law as described by Congress provided for an exchange of lands with the Indians residing in any of the states or territories and for their removal west of the river Mississippi. And you call this a restrictive immigration law? Can you explain in what sense it is? Where's the provision that restricts immigration?
Yeah, the Native Americans are not freely allowed to travel into the territory of the United States, and if they do so, they'll be deported.
Where is that? Where is that?
Didn't you just read it?
No, that's not what that said.
Read it again out loud.
I read a Wikipedia summary, and it said the following. The Indian Removal Act, as described by Congress, provided, quote, for an exchange of lands with the Indians without any state or territories. You agree that's different than saying that they can't come in? Agreed, yes or no?
Sorry, you'd have to state it again. I'm reading things as well.
So, wait, Connor. I'm not going to have you read things and not listen to me when you were having a discussion. When you stop for a moment and you say reread something. So, I'm going to stop.
You're asking me to find
Counter. No, stop. We have already have one. We have you've provided one. And we're going to do step by step. So this law is what we're looking at right now. You don't need to look for anything else. We found the law. So pay attention to me when I'm talking.
Well, I also found one in 1763. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. 1763 predates the United States. You're aware. Okay. So in the 1830 Removal Act, you're listening to me, right? Is an exchange of lands with the Indians residing in any of the states or territories, is that preventing them from entering into the country?
No.
Okay. And the next part is removal west of the river Mississippi. Is that preventing entry into the United States?
I would presume absolutely.
That's not a restrictive immigration law. That's a removal law, right?
Wait, so hold on. So you think that the sovereign Native Americans who lived between the Mississippi and the East Coast.
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question.
Travel into the United States of America.
Connor, I'm asking you a question. Is a law providing for
you've moved on.
I am not. No.
You've moved it from.
Counter.
We had open borders. Open borders clearly means the Native Americans can travel freely within the United States of America. But you're just wrong.
Connor. Pause. We're just taking this so slowly. There's not going to be any bad faith here. Don't worry. So you agree that the exchange of lands is not a restrictive immigration law in that it doesn't prevent people from entering into the United States, correct?
Yeah, it's not explicit.
And is a law providing for the removal of certain persons a restrictive immigration law in that it prevents people from coming into the United States? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just talking about different things because I grant to you, at the founding of the country, there was a thing called the Alien Acts. Remember the Alien and Sedition Acts? The Alien Acts does provide for removal of certain people, but that's not what we're talking about, Connor. We're talking about restrictive immigration laws that prevent the entry into the country. You understand what I'm saying? I can't hear you.
Sorry, need to click the mute button.
Laws that make it illegal to enter the country.
What you're saying is because I think that anybody with a functioning brain and probably a brain stem could see how flatly absurd this is. And I do have to go in a second, but I'm happy to continue this tomorrow.
So
or the
crazy,
next day,
dude.
Or the next day. So what you're saying is there was the Commonwealth of Virginia, right? It was a state that was a member of the 13 colonies.
I didn't mention that.
And in a Native American, Lakota, Dakota, Sioux, Cheyenne, Apache, whatever, they show up to they show up to the borders of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and there's a constable who's responsible for that territory. And so the constable
I didn't say any of this.
There,
I didn't say any of this.
And he goes, oh yeah, Native Americans, go ahead, go right on in. We're open borders. We have no laws about Native Americans. You can go right into the Commonwealth of Virginia.
So Connor, you agree I didn't say any of this?
That's what the definition of an open border would be, Pisco.
Wait, no, Connor. You understand I didn't say any of this? You just said this.
Yeah. I'm using this as an example.
So
when you said that the United States was open borders,
do you understand how
the middle 20th century?
Do you understand how much of a
laughably absurd
it's not laughable? It's not laughable. It is not laughable. No, I'm going to. So Connor,
blacks, Native Americans, Frenchmen, Canadians, Brits. They could all travel freely to the United States. That's what you were saying.
First of all, yes, they could travel freely to the United States under the law. Under the law of the United States, that is true.
Including Native Americans and Africans?
Including Native Americans, including Africans, and some of whom were brought here against their will. But let's just see very quickly. I'm not going to be distracted. What you just did was so slimy as to be indistinguishable from bad faith. What you just gave was a fact pattern in which, what, you think all of these, another destiny tactic. If all of a sudden we had 1,000 Native Americans show up all of a sudden to the Commonwealth, that a constable looking at them under the authorities of the Commonwealth of Virginia wouldn't say something? Do you understand how bad faith of representation that was? Yeah. Do you understand how bad faith of representation that was? Can you explain why it's bad faith?
You're saying it's bad fucking faith to logically extend your own arguments.
No. The question isn't, would someone do something? Would someone say something? Would someone be upset about something?
Probably wouldn't let them into the fucking Commonwealth.
What was the fucking question, Connor?
Well, I mean, I'm about to read the Alien and Sedition Act.
Yeah, the Alien and Sedition Act provided for the removal of persons deemed to be alien enemies. And also, and that's currently what we're dealing with the Alien Enemies Act. That's removal.
Okay, so you're saying up until so what a constable would do, or what a federal representative would do, is they would say, "Welcome in, Native Americans, blacks, Frenchmen, and Brits."
You just did it again. Look how fucking bad faith you are. Look how fucking blueberries. Look at how fucking bad faithful you are.
But then, look at how they're invited into the country. Then maybe about 20 minutes later, some other federal guy goes, "Oh,
this is insane.
You're a class of person that needs to be removed from this country. So we're
no.
remove you."
Wait, Counter.
There's no prohibition about them coming in, but there's absolutely a law about taking them out.
Counter. Did you hear me say that I was representing that the American?
You said it was open borders. What do you think open
Shut
means?
the fuck up. Pause. Did I say that they were inviting people in? You can just answer that clearly.
No.
So why did you just do that hypothetical? You think everyone was saying come in? And why did you say that? If not bad faith?
Because that's what open borders means.
No, what do you take
open border? Border. What do you think open border means?
Wait. So do you think that open borders is saying that there are no restrictive laws on entering the country? Or do you think that open borders means everybody come on in and actively inviting and courting people to come into the country? Which of those two things better represents the term open borders?
I think the first one is probably law. I think the second one is the culture.
So when you were referring to open borders, and when I asked you, isn't it true America had open borders until 1870? Okay. So hang on a second. Last question, then you can fucking go. We have to keep doing, because this is beneath you, Connor. Your behavior here, it is all ego driven. It is just because you lost on a single point.
You disagree with me?
No, it's
this
crazy.
Is ego driven bad faith.
No,
this is a destiny tactic.
No, what you just did. What you just did.
You as a gentleman of the
court. I'll explain. Wait. What you just? Wait. Connor. Stop. Connor.
I'm saying the same thing.
Connor, stop. So the reason why I said that of you is because you totally mischaracterized my point and did a straw man. The straw man was that I was construing the founding generation to be like, we don't care about race. Everyone come on in. We love peoples. Come enjoy our blueberries. That was the straw man that you did. And you're like, this is what you actually believe? That's bad faith, Connor. That's bad faith. And it's almost like these comparisons.
The logical extension of your own belief systems and statements.
Wait, there is no logical extension there. You can have it. Wait. There is no logical extension there. There is no logical extension there whatsoever.
Yes. Don't worry. I'll explain it. So here's what happened is I brought up Hart-Celler Act as a revolution in the way that we approach
Groiper talking point. Groiper.
Did change demography. I'd like to.
Because you're a Groiper.
the demography of the United States of America. You were like, that's a Groyper talking
It is.
point.
It is.
That's a right-wing talking point. And then I said, okay, well, if it's descriptively real, who gives a shit? And then you said, well, it's not descriptively real. The United States had open borders for the first century of its existence. And then I said,
you're not even tracking the conversation. Wait, you're
not
even tracking the Constitution.
Very clearly the way that we set up our Alien and Sedition
Crazy.
Act, our Indian Removal Act of 1830, our whatever act that I cited to you that was like 1875. It's pretty clear that we did care about the ethno-religious groups of the people that we allowed into our country.
I never talked about that.
Open borders for about the past
I never talked about ethno-religious. Wait, I never talked about ethno-religious. Counter. I didn't talk about ethno-religious. I didn't say anything about that. I wasn't representing that. I didn't represent that America didn't care about its ethno-religious backgrounds.
Said ethno-religious at some point.
You said it after you said immigration was a wall that people wanted to tear down. You said ethno-religious after, showing what you actually care about, because you're a fucking Groyper. That's what you said. I never made a representation. I need you to say this. I never made a representation that the Americans didn't care about the ethno-religious background of people coming to the country. That is an absurd thing that I just never fucking said. Of course the fucking founding generation distrusted Catholics, distrusted all sorts of groups.
Actually,
so you're fucking lying.
Doesn't mean a unrestrictive or non-existent immigration policy. Open border actually means white Americans caring about the residency and ethno-religious background of their constituent
What are
members.
you
That's
talking about?
open
Wait a second. No, open borders to me are the lack of restrictions, legal restrictions on entering into the country. That's what open borders means. No, there's no rules for people coming in. That's what open borders is. Do you agree or disagree?
So this is the logical extension of your statement. Native Americans show up to the Commonwealth of Virginia and they're allowed in.
So allowed in, when you say allowed in, there is no law that requires them to be stopped, that prevents them from entering. That's the actual, yes, that is what's going on here. There is no restrictive immigration law. By the way, there's no internal checks within the United States either from a customs perspective, but there were no restrictive immigration laws in the United States. Now, does that mean that you couldn't find me an example of some 100 natives crossing where some constable gets a band of people to push them the fuck out? No, that's not what it means. Does that mean that I'm saying there were no removal laws under the United States? No, I'm saying only what I mean, which is there were no restrictive immigration laws preventing the entry of peoples into the United States. Does that mean that nothing was ever done with vigilantes, that there were ever like bad constables or whatever? That's your straw man. That's your mischaracterization. Because you can't handle the fact that I'm right.
I think you have autism, but I'm about...
This is so crazy, dude.
30 minutes over time. But
all right, we'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. But seriously, or just for today, I love you. I do want to say I love you.
I love you too.
I love you. I really love you.
You got your panties in a twist. You're going a little crazy, but that's okay.
Connor, I love you. I am going to say this seriously though. For today, go fuck yourself. Seriously.
Okay, I'm sharing this drawing and I will zoom in, but can you see the drawing?
I can see the drawing. I can't make sense of it, but I can see words.
Let me scroll in. So yesterday we had a conversation and we were talking about Chesterton's fence.
Yes.
Okay, which is basically a rule. You don't remove a fence if you don't know what it's blocking.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I agree with you with that basic assumption. I don't have a problem with that.
Sure. And I made some examples. What we got wrapped up on was whether or not America was open borders for the first century of its existence. That's not even like the crux of what I was trying to communicate to you.
Okay.
So I want to focus on the Chesterton's fence thing.
All right, let's focus on what you wanted to communicate.
Okay. So there is a reason why, let's say, strict immigration, homophobia, and transphobia exist. And I would say that the reasons that these things exist is because of we're trying to prevent jihadist terrorists from getting into the United States. We're trying to prevent Chinese communist spies from getting into the United States. There's Canadian Nazis and European Nazis, propagandists that we all know and love who are part of alternative media. We got Russian dick suckers who are part of the American media space. And as a result, these are people who are bad for America, don't like America, don't like its ideals, don't like the republic, et cetera, et cetera. And so a strict immigration policy would prevent these people from getting into the country. However, we are also, I think conservatives in particular, when it comes to immigration, they're alarmist, right? Like the amount of jihadist terrorist attacks, 99.9% of Muslims are chill people. They're normal people, right? Same thing with like every Canadian. Not every Canadian is a Nazi propagandist, right?
Yeah.
So while we can have a sane, like I would say, like fence on limited immigration, here's kind of my perspective. I did use a racial slur for my drawing, but I won't say it out loud. Inside every Vietnamese person, it's a quote from a movie, is an American waiting to come out. I don't care about ethno-religious heritage as long as you work your job, pay your bills, take care of your community and your family, and you love the Republic of the United States. And I think that's the ideal that we should strive towards. So if we have Chesterton's fence, that's a strict immigration policy, then I would say that a gate that we could put in this metaphorical fence is sane immigration policy with extreme vetting that come into vetting of people who come into our country and secure borders. And so we could get into transsexuality or homosexuality, but I think that those just further illustrate the point that it feels like liberals and progressives oftentimes either want to take down the fence or they want to put in too big of a gate from a conservative perspective, whereas conservatives, I think, they want to put up too strong of a fence. And that's oftentimes the political dynamics that we deal with.
I guess I'm just having trouble fitting it into the framework because on the one hand, it does feel like this Chesterton's fence concept that you are trying to root it to something almost primal, evolutionarily based, or as a product of historical and technological advancement, and that has lineages going back like maybe even millennia. And what I'm hearing from you is like a policy argument, which could be correct, which could be incorrect. There are aspects of it which I probably will agree with. And I just am curious how the framework fits. So let me give you one point of contact, and maybe you can respond to it. So, one point of contact. This whole discussion is whether liberals and progressives want to take down Chesterton's fence on immigration. But of course, onboarding the view of the conservatives, they don't ever think that there was a proper fence to be taken down. From the perspective of Hart-Celler and the modern INA, they view that statutory framework as anathema, and they're not content with it. In fact, they trace so much of their problems to the lack of any fence ever having existed in a way that they thought should exist. And so that's what I'm like, I'm not understanding. If the status quo is unacceptable to these types of conservatives, in what sense are liberals or progressives advocating for getting rid of this fence? It seems like that's not what's happening, especially because the liberals in this country, for anybody who's actually watching, the Democrats have been increasing restrictions on immigration over the course of the last 5 presidencies.
Yeah, so I think that there's an appeal to benign neglect in this situation. And what I would say is, I heard Clinton talk about immigration, Bush talk about immigration, Obama talk about immigration, Trump talk about immigration. And now at the end of this, that's pretty much as long as I've been conscious as a political entity. Now that we're at a 30-year zenith of the hysteria around immigration, we are spending like $80 billion. Like we're spending $40 billion on a border wall. We're spending $40 billion on, I know that some conservatives are going to cringe, but like effectively on a domestic police, like a Gestapo, in order to run around and harass random United States citizens about whether or not they're citizens and deport them. And so my point is that like there is what I think would have been like the same thing, which is actually having like a decent border policy and a decent vetted immigration policy. But the truth is, I think that the benign neglect of our immigration policy of the past 70 years was it was too economically beneficial over the past 70 years to have a porous border to actually enforce the law.
Yeah, but I just don't understand this whole structure though, Conor, because on the one hand, just like fit it in the framework. If what we're suggesting is that it never was an acceptable state of immigration policy, this doesn't seem like an application of Chesterton's fence, right? If there was never an adequate or good status quo that for us to take down, then it just doesn't seem to map on to what you're suggesting. Maybe there's some other reasons to be dissatisfied with the status quo, but that seems to be not related to this Chesterton's fence concept that you're bringing up. Help me with that.
Even that I could move to the like the homosexual or transsexual examples if we wanted to resolve whether or not this is a correct application of Chesterton's fence.
But I just think it trivially doesn't apply. If no one is satisfied with the status quo, then there's nothing that liberals and progressives are seeking to uproot. You understand?
No, I don't agree with this.
Okay.
So the status quo, I would say that if you look at, and let's go broad, okay? Let's try not to get too autistic in the detail too quickly.
Okay.
So America, I like to think, has a pretty civic nationalist root when you look at the founding documents, when you look at the Constitution of the United States, when you look at the way that rights have been expanded over time. I think that it was part of our DNA to open our society over time, right? But I think that also what is historically arguable is that those men, this country, founded the country in its origination, they had a closed system. They wanted a closed system of white property owning men of good character, good or bad. I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm saying descriptively. And so when you look at the history of the 19th century, it's a history of that system opening up to more and more people. It's the emancipation of black people during the Civil War. It's the I don't even want to talk about Native Americans because that's probably a fucking mess. But it's the achievement of the suffragette movement in order to get the emancipation of women. It's the Civil Rights Act, all that kind of stuff. And so society has become more and more and more open. But what conservatives are saying is that we are too open now. We are taking in too many different kinds of people, and we need to close this openness. So it's almost like Chesterton's fence was removed or opened too wide, and now conservatives want to close it.
Yeah, but I guess I just don't understand with respect to what the kind of policy, like decision points that you're referencing there are like women's rights and the emancipation of slavery and relations with the American Indians. These just don't seem like immigration policies. And maybe we're broadening it out to be kind of like a general approach to inclusivity. But then I'm just not understanding what you're talking about with the Chesterton's fence applying specifically to immigration. You understand why I'm having the issue? Maybe
I understand why you're having the issue, but I think you could get past it if you wanted to.
I'm trying to apply. So this is why I'm like I get frustrated. I'm trying to apply a concept that you're introducing that I think that is important to you. That this Chesterton's fence concept, this assumption of keeping things unless you can have a good reason to get rid of them, which is something I've already said makes sense to me. This concept seems to have some value to you. And I can actually start to see it like how you're going to try to apply it to certain religious values. But I hear immigration and it just doesn't seem to fit the pattern. And I do actually also want to talk about some of the trends that you're suggesting with regard to openness and the immigration policies that we've actually pursued. I think that it's been exactly the opposite. Immigration policy in this country has gotten more and more restrictive over the course of years. It's not becoming more open. It's becoming more and more and more restrictive. And that's over the course of Democrats and Republicans.
I'm gonna draw this and I'm gonna share my screen because I think that this is illustrative, and I also don't think that it's deniable. You know, maybe you'll be able to find some way to deny it, but I don't think it's deniable. So I can't see because I'm putting it on a vertical screen. Where is the
we can see your lovely
line button. I don't see the line button. Okay, so I'm just going to draw this very poorly.
Freehand, yeah.
Yeah, very poorly it's going to get drawn, and it's very skinny. Can I do a brush? Let's do a solid brush.
Hell yeah.
Maybe let's make it thick. Can we increase?
Nice and thick.
the thickness.
Yeah, pick that up. Yeah, nice.
There we go. Okay. So let's say that this is Chesterton's fence, okay? And right at the formation of the country, the only people who were viewed as citizens of the United States, and I understand it was citizenship and naturalization, you want to make them discrete from immigration, but I think when we're talking about participation in a nation, if we're limiting who participates in the nation, it would stand to reason logically that those are the people that you want in your society. So when we started...
Sorry, I didn't catch all of that. I just need to understand it. So, sorry, I'm a little slow. Can you just tell me that again?
So, I think that you could be technically correct, white men of good character. You could be technically correct in that, saying that the only people who can be citizens of the United States are white men of good character is not technically immigration policy, right? Because let's say that you were in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, like the German Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. Let's say you were in the Holy Roman Empire and there were like Muslims and brown people and all this bullshit, and it was a multi-religious, multi-whatever polarity. Well, if you establish within that country that the only citizens can be Catholics, white Catholics, then technically that's not an immigration policy because you're excluding people who already are in that country. But my point to you is that
I would just grant that. No, I would grant that the rules of naturalization have become more open and we've taken down certain barriers to naturalization. If it's just a question of naturalization, I'll grant it there. But then I'll just say, yeah, it's for good reason that we loosened the rules of naturalization because a lot of these rules were like really, really racist.
Sure. And I think we can agree on that. So let's do like the first opening of this conservative rule, because I think we can agree that it's a conservative rule, right? Like white men want to conserve their own power.
I mean, in that sense of conservative, yeah. So one of the major times in which the rules of citizenship and naturalization opened up significantly was in the aftermath of after Dred Scott said that black people not only weren't citizens of the United States, they weren't citizens of any state by virtue of the fact that they're not citizens of the United States. We opened it up in the 14th Amendment as inspired by Lincoln, who kind of twisted Jefferson the 14th Amendment inspired by Lincoln, who twisted Jefferson in this, all men are created equal. And what we did was open up citizenship to freed slaves. That's one area in which we liberalized and opened the door to our naturalization laws to a different group of people. Oh, you're talking.
And if we can move the conversation forward in reference to, let's say that I'm not willing to concede that America was as open as you believe it to be in the 19th century, but I don't think that is necessary for us to have a good conversation about this concept.
Wait. No. Okay? I just want to be specific about what I think that they're open with respect to.
Yeah, naturalization.
No.
You said
I think that after the 14th Amendment, the rules of naturalization became a lot more open for black people. That before, black people were not considered citizens of the United States post Dred Scott. That was the ruling was black people are not citizens of the United States. Therefore, they're not citizens of any particular state. Therefore, you can't have diversity jurisdiction for purposes which requires citizenry of states. And what the Taney court found is that they're not citizens of the United States, therefore not citizens of a state. And so what I'm suggesting to you is no more, no less than the citizenship rules were loosened in the sense that now black people can be citizens.
Okay, I agree with you 100%. I have no objections.
Okay, so that's an example. I would grant to you that not only is that true, it started to open up even more. So in the 20th century, before, Native Americans who are born in tribal lands were not considered to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and therefore were not granted citizenship by virtue of their birth. Congress passes a law in the 20th century to extend citizenship to such people who are born there. And so it is opening up in some sense, but a big opening happened with the 14th Amendment. I just don't understand. Yeah, that was all justified because we didn't want racist citizenship laws. Unless you think we should have had those.
Yeah. Then okay. Then with the drawing, what I've done so far in order to illustrate what we're talking about, okay, is we've done originally the naturalization or citizenship process of the United States was limited to white men of good character. I think it might have even been property owning white men at one point. Then we opened it up to black men who are citizens of the United States and had the right to vote. I guess black men and women were
don't conflate right to vote with citizenship. So there were limitations on even citizens' right to vote in ways that we wouldn't think are proper today. But and you could get citizenship by virtue of your birth in America without being a person of good moral character. It's just that that's called birth, citizenship at birth, as opposed to naturalization. So the rules of naturalization were restrictive. That's converting someone from not citizen to citizen. That's what became more open, as well as just granting all black people citizenship by virtue of their birth.
Sure. And what I would say the argument is, and I'll draw this as soon as my mouse cursor gets in here, is we have a current, I wouldn't even call it an emergency, but I think a lot of people treat it as an emergency. This would be like the first time that we opened the proverbial Chesterton's fence and put a gate in it. Then the women's right to vote and Native Americans being a part of it would be the second time, and we made the gate open. Now, there's an argument that we should make a new gate that should be even broader. And the even broader gate than what we currently have would be effectively like any Hispanic who gets here who's a decent person from Central or South America should have an easy path to citizenship. And then there's also an argument that some people in America, due to jihadist terrorism over the past 30 years, believe that Muslims are incompatible with the United States of America. All you have to do is go onto Twitter and you can see the sentiment regurgitated all the time. And so as a result, we should be limiting immigration from the Middle East and North Africa.
Yeah, but that's just the wrong assessment of the current state of the fence. The current state of the fence is that anyone who's born in the United States is a citizen of the United States, and it's just if that doesn't apply to you, it's actually really, really, really hard for just a good guy to get citizenship. Not even including by legal means, it takes like a decade. It takes like literally so it's not easy. This is just a misunderstanding, right? So there are people who, by virtue of their birth, yeah, they get citizenship if they're born here. But that fence, to the extent that it was taken down, it actually was part of the English common law even before the ratification of the 14th Amendment. It was a prevailing common law rule that existed then. But even putting that aside, that's been cooked forever. That's been cooked for literally centuries. And anyone who says, "Oh, it's so easy to become a citizen," other than through that, is just lying, because it's actually very hard and takes a lot of time. As for the Muslim thing, I thought we all agreed that there should be no religious tests and that freedom of religion was really important and we shouldn't have an establishment of religion. So that fence, I feel like, is also down.
Yeah, but that we're also talking about legality and established precedent. Like so, for instance, if you check out my Twitter, on my Twitter, people are arguing that effectively they're arguing that we shouldn't have the First Amendment and that Congress should be able to. I'm going to remove my screen. They're arguing that we should have effectively like religious tests in order for people to become a part of the United States. It should be a Christian nation, blah, 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 blah. And when I hear the word nation now, I just hear people. So what they're saying is that like all Americans should either be Christian or they should pay deference to Christianity.
That's new. That's that's different from what we've been doing for this past
time. There were
time.
theocrats throughout American history. It just wasn't enshrined by law.
I agree that there are theocrats in America's history. There actually were establishments of religion early on in some of the states when the First Amendment didn't apply to a lot of the state governments. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the prevailing practice in the last over 100 plus years, even further than that, and the values of this country, which were founded oftentimes, not always, not exclusively, but by religious minorities, Christian minorities who are being persecuted, is to keep the state out of deciding ecclesiastical matters and making decisions as to the correctness or incorrectness of religion. And so whatever you want to say about about the past,
this is
like
perfect.
Currently this is the status quo, is that we don't have the government tell us which religion is correct.
Oh, this is perfect. It's illustrative of a agreement from conservative.
You're cutting out a little bit there, Connor. Is something up with your internet?
I'm muting myself because if I don't mute myself, I get an echo, and I broke my headphones.
Okay.
So I'll try to get closer, and I'll try to be more mindful of the mute button.
Yep.
But this is where we have. Okay, you guys are crazy. I should ignore my chat. So we have. Let's use immigration from the Middle East and North Africa and Muslims as a proxy for this entire conversation. Okay.
Okay.
What you said that I agree with is that the legal system of the United States effectively prohibits discrimination based on religion, right? We should be value neutral in our evaluation of citizens based on religion.
More or less, I want to add the caveat here that the court has seemed to embrace that rules of exclusion seem to be way more deferential to the government's rationales than rules in the interior of the country that might relate to naturalization or other kinds of benefits the government might provide. And so to me, as I read Trump versus Hawaii, which was the original Muslim ban case or whatever, I think it's a little bit incoherent. I think there's contradictions within it, but it seems that Roberts is willing to apply quite a deferential test to even assumedly explicit Muslim restrictions. At least I think that's what the logic of the opinion entails. That said, people will, because it seems so insane to say something like, we should limit Jews from entering into the country, people will usually, for the sake of argument, concede that that kind of stuff is unacceptable. So I will grant what you just said with the caveat that it does seem to be the case that there are more deferential standards applied to exclusion rules as opposed to other kinds of laws that the government might pass.
Okay. So when it comes to Islam, I've read the Quran. I have Muslim friends. Blah 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 blah. Okay, take all the excuses for whatever you need to hear in order for me to say the next thing.
Virtue signal.
Yes. I have a Muslim friend. He's from Sudan. So Islam is actually, there's a very low bar to entry into the religion of Islam. They believe in God, the last day, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger, and do good works in this life. That's actually like the bar for being a Muslim. Being a Muslim is actually like really, there's a low bar to entry as a religion. However, there's also texts within the Quran that say that the world is not going to know peace until, the world is united in Islam. And so that is a call for proselytizing, which I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with people proselytizing, but it also arguably in certain political sectors is a call for conquest. And specifically secularization in the Western world, where we become increasingly atheistic, where we become increasingly rejecting of the Abrahamic God, is actually viewed as like a fall into like Satanism and degeneracy and evil. And the attempts at secularism to spread into the Western world is also viewed as evil, because effectively what we're doing is we're tempting people from the path of God and we're sending them to hell. And so as a result, some Muslims, not all Muslims, but some are Islamist, meaning that they want to get into democratic countries. They want to, through proselytization and immigration, they want to seize a democratic majority. Once they have a democratic majority, they want to convert the Western world into an Islamic theocracy. And that's a long-term plan. There's also Muslims who further believe in jihadism, which is that the United States and Israel and secularism and Satanism and hedonism and materialism is infecting the Muslim world. And as a result, this is a spiritual existential threat that should be combated with violence. And so oftentimes, if you look at the manifestos of jihadist terrorists, they will take a combination of this belief and geopolitical grievance in order to justify their attacks on civilians. And this has caused real national security issues over the past like 2 or 3 decades. And it's caused thousands of civilian deaths that were unnecessary. And so when we're talking about the immigration fence being open to everybody of everybody's religion, in my opinion, if you are not vetting people from the Middle East and North Africa who are Muslim extremely hard in order to see whether or not they're an Islamist theocratic opponent to the political system of the United States or a potential jihadist, then you are failing in your duty to secure the United States.
Okay. Now, I'm hearing what you're saying. I agree that Islamic fundamentalism is an issue, and it's one which requires us to like think very critically about how to address it. What I am hearing is a lot of your concerns are not grounded in theological considerations, but kind of at least what you're purporting to be facially neutral grounds. That is to say, we're going to treat Muslims worse because of security threats. That's correct?
Relatively speaking, it's a variable. It's a variable of analysis.
Okay. So help me out here. Why wouldn't this apply to racial minorities who have a higher tendency towards crime?
I think it should.
So you would want to have racially discriminatory immigration laws?
No, but as an example, let's say that we found that there's a statistical, like the Sentinelese people, right? They're this isolated tribe from this island that nobody can go to. Let's say that there was a mass immigration flux of Sentinelese people who were coming into the United States. And we found that, and I don't even know if the Sentinelese are cannibals, but let's just roll for it. But let's say that within the Sentinelese American community, while 99% of Sentinelese immigrants were great, good neighbors, worked their jobs, paid their bills, whatever, there was still 1% who were hostile to outsiders and practiced cannibalism, right? Mm-hmm. Then, in future immigration waves from the Sentinelese Island or whatever it's called, then I think that we should be vetting extremely hard for cannibalism. And having that prejudice when you're screening people to come into the country, I think it's rational.
Based on what? Based on race or based on where they're coming from in terms of their nation?
I would say so I don't even know if it's like racial or national or religious. If you can categorize and track the social behavior. So for instance, like I'm saying that Muslims would be singled out for worse treatment compared to other immigrants because I'm acknowledging that systemically they would have a higher burden of proof to get into the United States as an immigrant, right? Just through virtue of being Muslim.
Right. So that is saying it's a higher standard for Muslims, right? That is a higher, they have to have a more robust showing than non-Muslims. So it is, by its terms, you're not hiding from it, a religiously discriminatory vetting policy, correct?
Yes, in practice. But
no, not just in practice. Explicitly. So one thing would be saying something like this.
Well, I want to make an addendum though that I think will actually be more liberal. So the rule would be like you could universalize the rule. So for instance, like if it's let's say that we knew that we wanted to discriminate basically off of like we do not theocrats. Okay. Well, instead of making the rule, we don't want Muslim theocrats, we could just say we don't want theocrats at all because that's contrary to the principles of the Republic. And then as a result, let's say that this law was created because jihadists and Islamists exist. Mm-hmm. But then let's say, I don't know, let's say there's like a new militant form of Hinduism that is theocratic and militant and violent and terroristic. The law would also catch the militant theocratic Hindus or Jews or Christians.
Right. So that would be more, it wouldn't be completely neutral in that you are singling out specific kinds of extremism, namely religious extremism, as part of your vetting. But that would be a neutral rule in terms of as between religions, you know? So that seems like by its terms, that would be, at least on that front, neutral religious law that isn't discriminatory explicitly. But I just didn't understand that that's what you were saying. I thought you were saying that Muslims should be held to a higher standard.
Well, I would say that they would be in practice systemically. Okay. So as an example, let's say we create this law where we ban theocratic advocates, and we also ban religious extremists who sympathize with people who participate in violence, right? Then we might catch people like maybe there's some Sikh denomination that fits this category. Maybe there's some Jewish denomination that fits this category.
The category is neutral as to which religion. It's a category that will tend to, based on your analysis of these different polling questions and demographics,
it's disproportionately going to affect the Muslim and Middle Eastern and North African immigrants.
But it wouldn't say something like this. It wouldn't say the rule is no Islamic jihadists. The rule is no religious extremism. Something like that. Yeah,
no violent religious extremists or their sympathizers.
Okay. And do you have an issue? Here's my issue with the government getting involved in a lot of this shit. I think when you start to get into the deciding on extremism, start to get into the deciding of things that are like unrelated, and this is not even from a legal perspective, because I think that the government probably is within its rights at the point of entry to make these kinds of line drawing decisions or whatever. I just view that as the kind of current state of the law. But I just think there's an institutional competency problem for the government to make these kinds of line drawing decisions. Look at what Trump is doing right now with asylum, where he's like selectively giving it to certain people from states for where there's obviously some sort of identity-based reason why he would do it. And like, imagine now your worst nightmare, some sort of lefty who says, oh, religious extremism, supporting violence against civilians, IDF. So any person who supports the IDF should be like banned from the country, because that would trivially meet some sort of bar, you know?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, though, I would accept that. So let's say that we had a dual citizen, or maybe not even a dual citizen, maybe an Israeli citizen. And let's say that an Israeli citizen wanted to immigrate to the United States and they wanted to become a citizen of the United States. But let's say that openly on their social media, they were like, glass Gaza, fuck the Palestinians, they're not even human, they're pieces of shit. The IDF didn't grape enough prisoners, right? Like, let's say that was part of their social media. Then at that point, I would be like, no, like, fuck you. Like, no, like you're not maybe you could come for a vacation, you know, like with your family, but you're not getting citizenship. And I would be perfectly okay with that level of discrimination.
Yeah, no, I don't have necessarily a problem with making entry rules and for scarce resources like visas that would take into consideration the glorification of violence and these kinds of things. Where I start to feel uncomfortable, though, is any kind of per se rule that either targets specific forms of this kind of thought, in the sense of like, taking a view on, well, we're banning Muslim extremism but not Christian extremism, or we're banning people with criminal backgrounds from Asia but not people from criminal backgrounds from Europe, or some shit like that. Maybe there it's less of a concern because it's like more nation based, but any kind of area where you're giving unbridled discretion for these officers to make these kinds of decisions that are based on like more pertinent traits, or where there's a institutional competency issue, it starts to concern me a little bit. But I'm glad that you're not proposing a Muslim ban, are you?
No. It's actually, I would say that Islamophobia has decreased over the past like 5 to 10 years. And I do think that one of the coolest things about Thomas Jefferson, one of my favorite quotes that I like to throw on Twitter every now and then, is like, neither Hindu, and he spells it like Hindoo, neither Hindu nor pagan nor Jew nor Mohammedan should be barred from public office solely based off of the virtue of their religious belief. It's based somebody who's, 250 years ago, somebody 250 years ago trying to take a value neutral proposition when it comes to religion. And I think that should be our highest aspirations. However, where I do get frustrated with liberals and progressives is that it seems like when we talk about these things, because, I think that you've been very charitable and paying attention to what I'm saying during these conversations. But if I bring up Islamism in general or jihadism in general, or if I bring up mass immigration from Central and South America, then immediately the accusation is racism, bigotry, Islamophobia, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas there could be like a sane, practical, political middle here.
Well, I just was trying to get clarity on the view about like what you're proposing. If what you're proposing is any kind of policy which has as its intent the desire to preserve the white stock of America, to preserve the European stock of America, I kind of view that as definitionally racist in some sense. And if you have as in the purpose of the policy, the desire to I don't know, prevent access of Muslims into the country, I would view that as, definitionally taking a preference in terms of religion. Now, maybe that makes sense because these are just such bad ideas. You know me, I don't like religion that much. And I certainly do not like Islam at all as a religion. I don't agree that it's a good way to order our societies to the extent that it's making such claims and to the extent that people believe that stuff. But like, no. I just want to be clear about what the purpose is behind what you're suggesting. If what you're suggesting is to try to stop terrorism, I don't think people are going to disagree by and large, as long as they're neutral principles and good screening techniques or whatever, that's fine. What we're concerned about is, are you trying to preserve the white and European stock of America? I can't hear you. Doobie? What is this image? No one can hear you, by the way.
Can you hear me or no?
Now I can.
Okay. All right. So this is an accusation.
Wait, answer my question first. Are you trying to preserve the white and European stock?
Answers your question.
It doesn't.
It does. So give me some latitude. This is actually a drawing that is premised off of Doobie accusing me of being a white nationalist. So I want you to take a look at this drawing, okay?
Okay.
So this is the current demography of the United States of America. The paper white part is Northern European. The brown is approximately 24%. This is about like 65% right now. I think it's dropping, but that's where we're at right now. The brown is Hispanic. The blue is Jewish, the red is Muslim, the yellow is Asian, and the black is black, okay? And this is representative of white, Hispanic, Jewish, Muslim, Asian, black, and these are approximate percentages. So this is like 2%, 2%, 5%, 13%, and 24%. That's the wrong drawing. Let me pull up my drawing again. And so the point of this drawing is that this is where we are demographically. And what I said that Doobie accused me of being a white nationalist is I was saying that there are things that are common in northern, number one, I think like 90% of people date within their own like ethno-religious tribe. So Northern Europeans typically marry Northern Europeans, Hispanics typically marry Hispanics, blacks typically marry blacks. And I don't care. There's no like moral statement here. It's just more that 90% of people marry within their own tribes. So what Doobie wants, which I think is very funny, is this is a pile of men. It's men, but let's just pretend there's women in here. This is a pile of people. Oh, am I not sharing the screen?
Yeah, no.
I need to share the screen. You guys need to see the pile.
This is from the South Park episode where, yeah.
So here's a pile of men, but let's presume women having a giant orgy in the desert. And this is the same episode in which future people are a caramel mixture of all races and ethnicities who have become hairless, who speak a language that is a combination of all languages. Mm-hmm. And these are future people. This is what Doobie wants. He wants people to no longer see race, no longer see culture, no longer see this, no longer see this. They're not Black Americans, not white Americans. They're not Hispanic Americans.
He said he wants a monoculture.
Yeah, he wants a fucked to death monoculture.
He said that, or is that something you're attributing?
I'm being hyperbolic.
Okay.
Okay. So my prediction, but what also I think is entirely possible, is that Hispanics are not this like enemy tribe that is incompatible with the principles of the United States of America. I think we share a continent together. We share a religion together. We share a European colonial history together. We share arguably like an anti-racist social history, like Simone Bolivar, siding with the Native Americans and the slaves in order to overthrow the Spanish aristocrats in South America. We share these things. And so realistically, we're parallel cultures. So if 90% of whites if whites become a plurality in the country, where they're 30% or whatever, then they can be effectively in a demographic alliance with Hispanics and Asians. And then there's things that we need to fix within the Muslim community, the Jewish community, and the Black community, but that doesn't mean that we can't fix them within the next 1,000 years. So I'm not a white nationalist in the sense that I think in law we should enshrine this racial tribalism. But I do think that this like ethno-religious racial tribalism is perfectly possible for these demographic groups to still exist and to still share the United States as a republic.
I'm not asking what's possible, though. I'm asking, on your view, what is desirable?
What's desirable? I would rather. I don't think that the Doobie is now saying that he doesn't want a monoculture.
Yes, that's what he said.
I think he's backtracking, but that's okay. I don't want a monoculture. I don't want I think the cappuccino monoculture is lame. And I think this would be desirable. I think a Hispanic, Northern European, Asian power sharing agreement in the United States, along with bullying Muslims to not be Islamist or jihadist over time, bullying Jews to not be Zionist, and bullying Black folk out of disproportionate criminality, I think that would be ideal.
So does that necessitate protecting the white European stock of America?
Not in law. Not in law.
But for example, would you advocate that white people marry other white people to preserve the white heritage of the country?
Not really.
So in what sense would you be in support of protecting, if it's not through law and it's not through those kinds of cultural incentives or whatever encouragements? What would you support?
So we have this weird thing, right? That's happening in our current cultural zeitgeist. Do you remember the Smithsonian releasing a drawing on whiteness?
No.
Okay. So there's this drawing about whiteness, and it talks about like stereotypical Northern European Protestant values. And it talks about things like industry and timeliness and like all these different, we could pull it up if you wanted to. But effectively, I don't think timeliness is good because Northern Europeans invented it. I think timeliness is good, right? And then same thing with industry or industriousness. I just think that's a good virtue.
Like white people invented being on time for things?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's like the jokes of like colored people time and this, that, the other. Like there's obviously different cultural expectations when it comes to industriousness and timeliness.
Okay.
Right. So I wouldn't care that let's say that we became a cappuccino monoculture through natural pressures. I wouldn't care. What I do care about is that we retain the positive elements of modern Northern European culture that are American.
Like showing up to things on time.
Like timeliness and industry. Yeah. Which I don't think are unique to Northern Europeans. I think they're just emphasized.
Okay. So you don't have a desire to protect the white stock of the United States. That's not a desire that you have.
But here's where it gets a little spicy though, okay? So let's say that you said you have no desire to protect the white stock of the United States.
In virtue of its whiteness. In virtue of its whiteness.
On virtue of its whiteness. No, I don't give a fuck about that. Okay.
So in what sense do you want to preserve that
let's
white
make it a
stock?
little spicy, though.
Yeah.
I'll give you a spicy example to illustrate your question. Let's say that there was a West African name. Let's say it's Nigeria or something like that. Nigeria, and we have the opportunity for like 330 million people are inside the United States. Let's say there's 60 million Nigerians and they want to come over tomorrow. And let's say that there's cultural tropes that I view as negative in Nigerian culture that I think should be de-emphasized, deprioritized, or culturally eliminated. And then I think that there's positive things that Americans are doing, like timeliness or industry or something like that, which would take a hit as a result of mass immigration from a different nation or different culture. I would not be in favor of mass immigration from that culture if it meant that the things that I care about would get hurt, and if it meant that I would have to tolerate things that I think are barbaric.
But you don't think, for example, that like white people are inherently better? You don't think that like you want your kids to look white? Do you?
No.
Okay.
I was saying the other day, if my sons, I have 2 sons, they're pretty cis-het normative. If they liked a black chick or liked a Hispanic chick or a Muslim chick or whatever, I wouldn't care.
All right.
As long as she's good and has good values.
Do you have the impression that liberals want to import 60 million Nigerians into the United States?
Yeah.
What gives you that impression?
I mean, that's a hyperbolic statement, but at the same time, like, I think that liberals, if you ever bring up the content of someone's character, or if you bring up tropes from a minority group that you think is negative, then oftentimes there's this like reflexive defensiveness where instead of talking about like, oh, okay, that actually does happen and that's bad and we should police that behavior, instead it's this like rally to defend the oppressed or an attacked minority.
Except when they do things like, did you hear, was it on The View where these people were like, we need to have all these Mexicans here because otherwise who's going to clean my toilet? Did you hear that shit?
I mean, it's cruel, but I mean, I make arguments about the agricultural and construction industry taking massive hits because of anti-Hispanic deportation operations.
Okay, but can we get to brass tacks here? So this sounds like what you're trying to sell this is, it's not a racial-based policy. That race correlates and ethnicity correlates with certain values that you think aren't intrinsic to that race, but perhaps were invented by them or are best exemplified in that group. And so you're not in favor of preserving a white heritage for America for its own sake, but only to the extent that it preserves the things that you think are correlated to whiteness, I guess.
Yeah, like republicanism or democracy or mixed economy capitalism or industry or timeliness.
Huh. Okay. So what about so walk me through that and your recent dalliance with Mr. Nicholas. Yeah,
so Nick, we said that we were going to talk about this a few conversations ago, and I'm happy that we're finally getting here where it's like, oh, well, I agree with Nick on this, that, the other. Okay. I think that Nick's prescriptions suck. Okay. So let's get that out of the way. Nick's prescriptions that we need a new dictator, we need a new Hitler, we need to freeze all immigration, Jews are the heart of America's problems, we need to dispossess Jews of political power, this, that, the other. His prescriptions suck ass. Okay, so we can skip all of that. Nick's prescriptions suck ass. What I think Nick talks to, which I think that he is adept at talking about, is P.F. Young, who I do not think is an idiot, although a lot of people think he's an idiot. I think he identified wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric as the things that are driving Americans crazy. And it seems like Zoomers, Zoomer men in particular, Zoomers who are incels or volcels or socially awkward or not capable of getting outside, there's hundreds of thousands to millions of them who feel like they're being left behind, and they are disrupting our political zeitgeist. And so him saying like, hey, you need to take care of this demographic or this demographic is going to fuck everything up. Nick's correct about that.
Yeah. So I'm having some trouble trying to distill what you think he's right about. So let's take every part of the diagnosis, which basically you're saying his prescription sucks, but his diagnosis is like a correct diagnosis of what ails us.
There's hundreds of thousands or millions of young men who feel left behind by our current culture, zeitgeist, and economy.
I would agree with that for sure, but that's no more true or no less true than the communists and the Hassan Pikers. So you're going to have to find something that distinguishes those.
No, but I think they're correct as well. But I think that with the communists, particularly if they're progressive, particularly if they were progressive in the late 2010s, white men were arguably supposed to take a back seat in the grievance culture of America. Whereas I think what Nick and his ilk do is they say, well, you know, white men are the best at everything, so we're going to be the best at grievance culture. Yeah, and then that's ironically enough, they're doing quite a good job of it.
I don't understand why you respect that. He's a demagogue. This is not new. This is like shit that everyone in like the 20th century, there were these types of people. Limbaugh did this.
Well, I mean, it's the same way that it's the same way that I respect Destiny. I think Destiny's worldview leads to nihilism, hedonism, sexual degeneracy, and self-worship. But that doesn't mean that Destiny isn't...
His political worldview or his personal life?
I would say his politics and his personal worldview.
What do you mean? His politics are like Lib Dem.
Yeah. I think that yesterday, as a part of our conversation, you and I agreed that liberalism is a decent governing philosophy, but it's insufficient for like a happy, healthy, flourishing human life. And it's up to the individual.
It doesn't claim to be, but it's not that thing, right? Liberalism doesn't claim to be a theory of how to live your life. It just is
correct. But then it makes effectively how you live your life, as long as you're not committing crimes, it makes how you live your life a neutral proposition. Having kids or not having kids, participating in the economy, or like striving to be the most economically aggressive person possible, or withdrawing from the economy. You could go through like a dozen behaviors and their antitheses, and these are all tolerated under the liberal framework. So that lack of a positive vision of what the good life is part of the reason why people are drowning.
The lack of some other affirmative, theory of how one ought live their life is causing people to drown. I just don't see the argument for that. Like, I think that a lot of what is causing people to feel detached and isolated has to do with things that aren't ideological in nature or have to do with some like gap in ideology. I think it has to do with technological advancement, as you cited, and like economic inequality and prices and shit like that, and like not having a better life, not being able to afford a house. I don't know what it is that you think is like sourcing these troubles to the inadequacies of liberalism. It seems like inadequacies in our society, which is a liberal society, but it's not in virtue of its liberalness that's causing all these things, unless you disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree with that. So I think that when you say that having kids or not having kids is value neutral, or being a sexual degenerate or being sexually chaste is neutral. Wait.
I'm only reason I'm interrupting you is I didn't say that it's value neutral to have a kid or not have a kid. I'm just saying both types of emphasis, either like your emphasis on family life or emphasis on career or whatever, both are compatible with liberalism.
Yeah, they're both compatible with liberalism, so they're treated as the same.
I don't know why, like, by who.
If a woman freezes her eggs, pursues her career, and never has kids or whatever, that's treated the same as being a homemaker. Then
depends on who you ask.
What's that?
That's going to depend on who you ask. Some people think that.
I agree with that.
Okay,
but that's where I'm saying that effectively. But I think that we are swimming. We are fish that are swimming in a liberal sea. Okay. So if you look at the governmental system, if you look at our pop culture, if you look at the way that the economy works, if you look at all that kind of stuff, it effectively reinforces the concept that you can do whatever you want to do as long as it's legal. And even if you do something illegal, you could probably get away with it for a while until you get punished.
Who says that you should do anything as long as it's legal? No one says this, Connor.
What are you talking about?
Who says you should do anything just because it's legal?
If I criticize the as I did earlier for a very long time, if I criticize the male homosexual community for promiscuity in a hardcore party culture, I have a bunch of liberals in my chat who are saying, number one, that doesn't exist. Then they say, wait, it does exist, but why do you care? And then they say, okay, it does exist and it's bad, but realistically, it's not their fault. And I'm getting all three of those lines of argumentation simultaneously. Whereas if we were living in a sane society, it would be like, yeah, doing hard drugs and having unprotected sex and being promiscuous to the point that you create disease or get infected, that's bad. And we should probably stop doing that as a culture.
Yeah, but
if we had an orienting principle.
What you said, this feels like the Mott and Bailey, right? Like you say something like,
no, it's not.
There are people who say just because it's legal, you should do it. And then you point to a specific, more discrete back and forth having to do with like sex positivity and sex negativity. And yeah, there are some entrenched views about that on either side of the political divide, but it's not as generalizable as do it because it's legal. There it's just like, oh, we just view having sex as like good in a way that you think it's like leads to bad outcomes. But that doesn't sort of, I think, substantiate your point that people are
right there. Okay, right there though. Part of the flaw in liberalism is that since it's saying like, okay, maybe there isn't an encouragement from the state. Okay, the state isn't say, as long as it's legal, go do it. The state's not saying that. I would say culture kind of does, but that's okay. So
culture is saying what? Do things that are legal just cause?
Yeah, we have a party culture. We love partying.
Oh,
we love
different.
drugs. We love sex. We love all this stuff. What are you talking about?
Okay, I agree that there's a culture that promotes parties. There's definitely sex positivity movement to support people having sex with multiple partners. I'm not going to deny that, but just like be specific about what you're talking about. You're talking about, and you're invoking ideas of degeneracy, moral degeneracy. That's what you're kind of trying to invoke, but it's not on the basis of its mere legality. You just think that there are certain people who are promoting like hedonism and degeneracy, right?
Yeah. And I think those voices are very loud in our culture.
All right, so let's talk about them. The people who are promoting like promiscuity, you view that as a kind of degeneracy, and you view it that way because you're not one of these red pillars who views like chastity and virginity as virtuous for their own sake, but merely because of spreading disease or shit like that.
Well, so let me explain with a little bit of nuance, if I may.
Okay.
So I think that it's pretty normal as you're coming of age, as a teenager, to want to do moderate substances like marijuana and alcohol and hang out with young members of the opposite sex and fool around, right? I think that's pretty normal for, let's say, 15 to 25.
And the same sex nowadays.
Sure. And bisexual and pansexual and every sexual and every gender as well. So that's pretty normal for a young person to do. And I've seen both sides of this coin. I've seen overly promiscuous people who have had a series of disastrous, shallow relationships, got addicted to the physical and emotional attention from those relationships, burned out, and now they're incapable of having a healthy relationship. I've seen that. But what I've also seen is I've seen conservatives who are virginal, who fall in love with one person instantaneously when they're 16. They get married. They change a lot as a human being between the age of 16 and 25. And then they have no idea who they are, who their partner is, the life that they've built, and why. And then their life implodes. So if we use those as two extremes of what like a giga conservative life and a giga libertine life is, then obviously, in my opinion, what's going to work for most people is probably being serial monogamous, but maybe a little party and fun in your early years, probably through your early 20s, and then probably in your mid to late 20s, looking for your partner, looking for your wife or husband or whatever, and then finding some level of stability with which to experience middle age. And I think that prescription is probably going to apply to 80 to 90% of the population.
Okay, I think most people kind of operate in that way, including liberals.
They do, but how old are you?
I'm late 20s, early 30s.
Okay. When do you plan on having kids?
I don't know why this is relevant, dude. Why are you asking me specific questions about my plans, my family plans?
Because you're an example. You're an example of what I'm talking about.
In what sense? When did aren't your kids? Did you have them in the next in 30s, in your early 30s?
Yeah, but part of the reason why I'm asking is because I think that your partner is a lefty. I think that you're kind of center lefty or whatever. Sex positivity, but antinatalism is associated with your political tribe, and maybe you don't want kids. Right? Maybe you don't want kids.
Listen. I just don't understand. Like, we don't need to personalize the nature of the.
Okay, let's not make it personal.
But for your own, I guess if you're curious, like eventually, I think I'll want kids. But I just don't understand why that. Like, what are you trying to make with the point? Suppose that I didn't. What would that advance your point?
What it would have evinced is that I think that being pronatal, following the model that I suggested, which I'll admit probably most normies do, but there's like cultural pressures in order to eschew this model. And also view it as, I don't even know if eschew is the right word, but let's just pretend it is, to avoid this model as too predictable. And then to basically, I think we have a largely antenatal culture. And I think it's like toxic.
I don't understand where is this coming from? You know, Biden passed these child tax credits. The government all the time is promoting families and family growth. Even Democrats are promoting. We're not talking
about the state. We're talking about culture,
planning and shit like that. Oh, the culture. Well, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, this is a problem all across the entire world. People are not having as much kids. It is robust across like every different society. It seems a bit much to put the blame on Western liberalism gone awry. When these kinds of trends are occurring in despotic regimes, these kinds of trends are occurring basically all over the planet, even in poor places. There's a demographic and aging crisis having to do with age.
Hold on.
And so like, I think it's a bit hubristic to say it's the West's degeneracy and shit like that. It's crazy.
Okay. Hold on a second. Mods. If you see a chat like this more than once, it sounds like Conor is blowing stuff way out of proportion. If you see that person say the same thing again, I want you to twist their balls. Okay?
Oh, no.
Ban them. Okay?
I just get triggered. I don't ban. I just get triggered.
No, I ban. So basically, like that whole thing where we've never seen this person before, and they come in here and they're like, Conor is meh, meh, meh. Give them two of them. They can do one. Beef Supreme, you're the only person that I tolerate who does this shit. So tolerate one, and then So MHBWHT.
Guys, come to my stream. You can say whatever you want within guidelines.
I think you just killed him. Yeah. You can say whatever you want. Just don't be a smug bitch. Okay. And then
if I want to be a smug bitch in your chat,
we'll wrap this up. I'm allowed to be a smug bitch. I'm the streamer. I can be a smug bitch. My chatters can't be smug bitches. Fair. And then here's the other thing. Smug bitching, modding, chatting, whatever. Yeah, I mean that's it. Yeah, if they're a smug bitch and they do it more than once, then twist their balls. All right. Anyways, sorry. Back to the combo.
Yeah, the combo.
So
Fuentes, you were going to tell me about Fuentes and shit. And now we're going on natalism, I observed that it's a trend across the world.
So far, I might have made like a hyperbolic statement. If I might have made a hyperbolic statement where like, oh, I agree with 60% of what Fuentes says. I probably agree with 10% of what Fuentes says, or maybe 30%.
Yeah, but unlike what though? It's no, but like the descriptive part isn't impressive. Like he's playing on. Yes, there's.
Who said it had to be impressive?
I don't know. Like observing that
I mean, we could just end this conversation. I'm not saying end the conversation overall. I'm saying we could end this line of argumentation, because if I say I agree with Nick Fuentes' description that hundreds of thousands or millions of young men are being left behind by society, and then you say that's not novel or interesting, then I can say, yeah, it's not novel or interesting, and then boom, that's the conversation.
Yeah, but you're sounding like, do you think that there's something there when I called you a groiper yesterday, when I was saying groiper talking points, I just sense it. I just have this fucking Sergeant Dokes. I'm like looking up, and I'm like, this motherfucker is getting high off of America First, and he's not telling the world. That's what I feel.
I don't even think that's true. I think you could actually go check out my content. I think my content is pretty critical of Nick. So, I mean, I have probably a dozen.
I know it's critical, but it's
dozen videos where I'm criticizing his geopolitics, his social prescriptions, all that stuff. I'm basically saying that this dude's prescriptions suck ass. Also, here's the other thing too. You know what's interesting about Nick is, so if you look at his history of the state of Israel from the late 19th century through the 20th century, it's actually, and I found this to be true of Hassan Piker as well, it's actually pretty accurate from like a descriptive standpoint. I just feel like there's lies of omission, where effectively, like, if there's a justification that actually benefits Zionists, or if there's a justification that benefits the state of Israel, and I'm aware of it, they omit that fact intentionally in order to narrativize why Israel is so evil.
So you agree with his contention? You agree with his historical contention that everywhere the Jews went, they caused problems? That's what his belief is with respect to the Jewish question.
No, but obviously, if we steelman that into, as a result of the Jewish diaspora, every Jews were treated as second-class citizens in every society, and as a result, there were like pogroms and tensions and this, that, the other. Like, if we steelman it, then we can find out a descriptive reality.
Why would we steelman it? This is old as dirt Jew baiting, and he's
trying to appeal to the hundreds of thousands or millions of men who are falling into America First and think that not only are his descriptions good, but his prescriptions are good.
Why then should we steelman it? We should attack
because
it.
if you straw man their arguments, or if you don't acknowledge the descriptive reality of their arguments, they tune you out instantaneously. They're like, oh, this person isn't even considering the arguments, I'm not going to listen to them at all.
The arguments that everywhere the Jews go, they cause problems historically?
Well, right. But if you reframe that into the steelman of, like, dude, I have another drawing. Let's do another drawing.
Show me.
I have so many drawings. Where is it? I think it's this one. Share the screen. Because this is a fight that I get into with Doobie all the time.
What is it with
Doobie,
by the way, gave me like 3
the
separate super chats saying that he never said he wanted a monoculture, just so you're aware.
Yeah, I know. I saw him. He was, spurging in my chat about it.
You're showing me your file explorer. Are you meaning to show me this?
Yes, I am. Wait, file explorer? No. My apologies. Let me try it again. I don't, unlike most leftists, I don't keep underage cartoon porn in my file explorer. All right. So here we go. So if we're, and give me 2 minutes, I'll be as fast as I can. Okay.
Take your time.
So when we're talking about Jewish history, Abraham is the original Jew. He was the first monotheist, and he believed that God promised him this territory, effectively east of the Nile River and west of the Euphrates. This is what he believed that he would inherit.
This is like a story. This is myth.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Then we have Joseph in the Bible, who went from the approximate area where Abraham was into Egypt to be an advisor. And then his descendants became the Semites, who were enslaved. And there's archaeological evidence that suggests that there was a Semitic exodus of a few thousand people around the time of Tutankhamun, which was 1200 before Christ. And Moses was the leader of that exodus, allegedly, if you believe the Bible. And he took his people into the Sinai, and then he took them into what was Canaan, or the Philistine territories.
Right, that's what it says in the Bible, yes.
Right. So then at that point, they establish ancient Israel and the kingdom of Judah, where they conquer this territory, which weirdly enough, suspiciously looks like modern Israel. All right. This was around like 1100 before Christ. Now we have the Babylonian conquest of Israel, where the Babylonians take over. Immediately after that, the Persians conquer Babylon, and Israel is considered a part of Babylon. Immediately after that, we have, well, and this is over the course of 1,000 years, so I say immediately after that, but just bear in mind it's over the course of 1,000 years. Then we have the...
Sorry.
No, I mean, it's true.
Keep going, sorry.
So we have the Greek conquest of the Middle East and North Africa, which also spawned some revolts. Then we have the Roman conquest of the Middle East and North Africa, which is the time in which Jesus is born, right? And so not only do the Romans sack the temple, but also the Crusaders do. Mm-hmm. During the Muslim incursions, we have Islam effectively take over this entire territory outside of Constantinople. Then we have the Crusades, where the Crusaders come in and they actually do sack Jerusalem and kill everybody. And as a result of these, I know it's like, what's the point of this? Okay, what's the point of this? But what happens is the Jews as a people have centralized themselves at the crossroads of humanity, and they've suffered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 military invasions that probably killed thousands of people. And so as a result, over the course of the medieval era, they engage in the diaspora, which is where they spread out across the world and become second-class citizens in a whole bunch of countries.
Right, where the Nick Fuenteses of those days accuse them of killing God.
Well poisoning.
Of killing God.
Killing God, well poisoning, child sacrifice. And then they would
and now this was all supposed to be about why we should steel man those arguments.
Well, we should.
Okay.
We should acknowledge that the diaspora is a historically true thing, and that's why Jews were in Europe.
Well,
so
there's a diaspora.
We can say that the well poisonings. We can say that the Christian anti-Semitism, the well poisonings, and the child sacrifice is not historically supported, and they were effectively like anti-Semitic myths that led to riots and murders and lynchings. We can say that, but we can still acknowledge the historical developments of the diaspora.
Wait, but who denies the historical development of the diaspora?
Well, I think when you say like, oh, Jews didn't do anything and they've gotten kicked out of like 109 countries or whatever fuck, whenever you just kind of like dismiss that as like, oh, well, you're just being anti-Semitic, you don't explain the history of what actually happened.
But like the meme that Fuentes is propagating isn't that they're like, well, there's a diaspora and Jewish people might have done some things wrong in some occasions. It's wherever they go, they cause problems because that's just who they are, and because they killed God, and they view us as
sure. I mean, I don't concede to that as a reality. I don't think that's a good argument.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that we should like not respect, and we should like just.
I don't, and I criticize that line of argumentation whenever I bump into it. But anyways, I mean, I can wrap it. But the point is that like you have the 19th century development of Zionism, which is arguably a broadly secular movement, but they still want to establish the state of Israel. We have the British Mandate and the World War II return, where a third of the international Jewish population gets wiped out. So a lot of Jews don't feel safe in Europe anymore. So they either go to the United States or they go to Israel, which doesn't exist yet. You got the Nakba, which is the ethnic cleansing of Israel after they declare independence, and the Palestinians and them get into territorial beefs. And then you have the reverse Nakba, which is the Middle Eastern and North African countries effectively saying, hey, you're a part of this like Jewish subterfuge in the region. As a result, get the fuck out of our country. And then you got modern Israel, which is the state that I'm drawing approximately here with these borders. And then you also have the context of, I didn't expect you to disagree with any of this, by the way.
Do you hear me disagreeing? Do you hear me disagreeing with any of the historical? I mean, I disagree with the
not so far.
I disagree with the historicity of the Abrahamic myths, but
sure.
With the history part, like Babylonian captivity, all that shit, I don't deny that.
I just want to wrap this because basically, like, I feel like this is a very broad stroke.
I'm not talking shit. Keep going. I want to hear this.
Okay. Well, then when we look at Islam and we look at the Muslim conquest that emanated out of Saudi Arabia, and then we look at where Islam is today, obviously they spread through diplomacy. Obviously they spread through trade, but they also spread through the sword. And so as a result, you effectively have a belt of Islamic belief Islamic belief across North Africa, Saharan Africa, the Middle East, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Western China, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And so as a result, what we're squabbling over as far as like an ethno-religious tribalist war is whether or not Jews can exist in this territory as a sovereign nation. And so that's what we're squabbling over. And so the whole point is that, like, this history, not only do I not think that it's like, it might be known in like a broad strokes sense with Groypers and Christian nationalists and also leftist critics of Israel, but I think that they oftentimes, they just say like, oh, the modern state of Israel is totally divorced from this history. And they'll say that. I would say Christian nationalists, anti-Semites say that all the time because they want to say, and I think I've heard.
I'll grant you that. They'll say things like, these are
all European.
Ashkenazi Jews.
It's a European settler colonial project. And by the way, I've heard leftists say that. I've heard Doobie say that. I've heard Hassan say that. I've heard Christian nationalists on Twitter say that. So yeah, so like the whole reason why, I guess that's actually the thrust of this like little history lesson. The thrust of this history lesson is the fact that, like, no, this is the history of the Jewish people over the past 3,400 years. It is relevant to the conflict in the modern state.
Yeah, but who says
understanding this history?
Like, okay, there are some people who are crazy. No, what I'm saying is like, I'm just saying like the kind of historical pattern that you've outlined here is more or less the classical, basically what they teach you in like world history or whatever. And I don't understand why this is very relevant to the Groyper conversation. Maybe I'm missing it.
Because I think the way that we got here, and I think I am a tangenty fella. I do think I have a little bit of ADD, but I think the reason why we got here is I've heard Nick tell that same story with what I view as like 70% accuracy. But then he adds in the well poisonings, the 109 countries, the finances, the banking, the usury, the animal sacrifice, the child sacrifice, and the what else is the other thing? Oh, and then also, I don't know if I've heard him say that Israel is a European settler colonial nation, but I have heard leftists say that. And so the whole reason why you need to be aware of this history or whatever is so you can actually fight it, I guess, with the mainstream narrative. Because I don't even think 80 to 90% of people remember the mainstream narrative. And so if they hear a talking point that is nice and tight and said confidently, they just buy it. Like Israel is a European settler colonial project.
What is it? It's not that?
Well, I mean, you could argue that, but I would say,
well, then, what's the issue? I'm not asking what would you argue. I'm asking, would you affirm that? I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what's incompatible with like it being a colonial project from Europe, where a lot of these intellectual through lines came out of, unless you're granting that Jews aren't European, those who lived in Europe.
Well, that's exactly the point, though. So what I would say is that I don't, patriarch's like, don't grant that, angry face. I don't associate like negativity with, I don't view settler colonial as an invective. Okay. Whereas I think because of anti-colonial academics, largely rooted in the left, settler colonialism has become an invective.
That's so funny, giving your opposition to open borders. I mean, it's so funny giving your opposition to open borders and immigration shit. That like, yes, okay, I don't have a problem with settler colonialism, but get all these fucking people out of my country in America. I just find that a little bit, rich.
No, but I'm not. But that's not even what I'm saying. Like I'm still being descriptive, dude. Very oftentimes in our past 2 conversations, you have assigned like moral weight to descriptions, and I think you. I think
descriptions. Wait. I think descriptions do have moral weight, and I'm pointing out like no. First of all, that was a normative statement that you just made, which is like I don't have a problem necessarily with settler colonialism, and I'm just seeing a potential tension.
Let me articulate something else. Do you think that the Greeks, when they settled down in Troy, because Greece is a separate like
Troy might be mythological as well.
Chain of islands.
I'm not sure. Troy might be mythological as well, but I'll assume that Troy is a real place.
Sorry, not Troy. God, it's Archimedes' city, Syracuse. So Syracuse is a city in southern Italy, if I remember the name of the city correctly, and it was a Hellenized city because the Greeks got on boats, went across the Mediterranean, they established a settlement, they started trading with the locals, and they colonized the area, and they had a huge cultural impact in that area. They were both settlers and they were colonials. So that is not, while definitionally that's accurate, they are settlers and they are colonials. What people are trying to invoke when they say settler colonialism is specifically like the age of exploration, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, and American and English exploitation of West Africa in the Americas. And so for me, when you say like the level of exploitation that's involved in Israel should be evaluated based off of the facts of the matter, not off of trying to invoke the evil of Western European colonial age of exploration bullshit.
Like what you do with the term communism and socialism.
What do you mean?
Never mind. Well, let's not get there. But I just want to... the point I'm making isn't that lefties aren't using that term to invoke certain like bad images. They clearly are. And a lot of it is thought terminating. And I agree that I think you need to make the additional case for why, notwithstanding, grant that it's a European settler colonial project, now we have to make the additional point that it's therefore unjustified. Now, I am not a Zionist, and I don't agree that they're I don't agree with ethno-state ambitions in the first place. That doesn't mean that I'm not like reasonable and willing to, a lot of states are founded on that ideal. I'm not calling for the abolishment of Israel or anything, but even just putting that aside, I don't strictly think that that's the point. The point of the tension that I was trying to draw out was you seem to think that you're like open to settler colonialism, but you have this kind of like very harsh stance on immigration. It seemed for a while that it seemed a little bit in tension.
Well, yeah, but like we have to evaluate everything not only within the context of its time in history, but also within like the moral perceptions of the people at the time in which it happens. So, for instance, like I would like to be a settler colonial of the stars. I would love it if we were like a space-faring species.
You want 40K, bro? Me too, bro.
No, but it's not. Endless but it's war. Not just 40K, dude. It's not just 40K, and I know it's like a good joke or whatever.
I'm sorry,
but there's the no. I'm not like offended. I'm just trying to actually draw this out into a serious point. Yeah. If we, because we might have the technology in the next few generations in order to actually explore the stars, and what I mean by that is if we unlock fusion, we might have the capacity to build perpetual thrust machines, which gives us access to artificial gravity, which would allow human beings to avoid a lot of the negative health effects of traveling in space. And also, if you have perpetual thrust machines, you can get to, I mean, seriously, like it would take 1 year of perpetual thrust at 1G in order to reach like 500,000, what is like half of light speed. Okay.
Yeah. And like so the closest star is many like
8 years.
No.
Yeah.
No, dude. We will never. Closest star.
At half light speed, Alpha Centauri is 8 years away. So you would burn, and I'm not even saying you would put humans on this. You would probably just do like Boston Dynamics robots at first.
4.25 light years. Oh, and you're saying at half light speed you get there, and at half light speed. that true? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's 8 years.
I don't. Okay.
But there's also time dilation as well. So like time dilation is, it would take the travelers 8 years to get there, but we might not hear from them for centuries or millennia because of the way that time dilation allegedly works. So anyways, but
right,
like we should
so we can't like communicate with them and
oh shit. Yeah, absolutely. And so no,
everyone says no one can go half light speed. Everyone is like yelling at you in my chat about half light speed.
Perpetual thrust at 1G for a year with a fusion reactor. You could get up to half light speed within a year. I'm gonna do what you do.
Perpetual motion at half G.
Say at perpetual thrust, how long would it take up to get to half life speed?
At perpetual it's like 11 months. How long would it take to get to half of light speed? AI says 173 days. Holy shit.
Now, the problem is, what if you hit a rock?
Well, that's
because if you hit a rock at half light speed, do you just obliterate? Because that might happen. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, okay, all this shit is speculative, right? It's all speculative fiction, okay? But at the same time, I think it would be hubris.
sorry.
I think it would be hubris. Fuck your chat, by the way. They can eat a barrel of dicks. So I think it would be hubris to have a article written in 1903 saying that humanity is not going to fly in for like another millennia, and then to have the first airplane in 1912, to have the nuclear bomb by 1940, to have commercial jet aircraft in the late 20th century, and then to say space travel is impossible. Like I think it's hubris. I think it's silly.
I hope that we are able to explore the galaxies and find out cool stuff. I do. And that's why we need an ethno-state of white people.
It's not gonna happen. Well, I mean, number one, I think space exploration would actually probably end racism because we would find bigger problems.
You think?
But yeah. There's only one race, the human race.
Where are the aliens? We should have seen them by now.
Well, right. So no, you get into all these things, and we don't have to get totally dragged down by like speculative science fiction exploration. But the point is that, like, let's say that we were dealing with
guys,
sapiens.
don't say this. Don't say space travel is impossible. We literally travel space.
Yeah,
I understand that Connor's talking about future tech shit, but we do travel space. Okay.
So the point is, though, let's say that we needed to have these moral calculations before we meet another sentient or sapient species. So let's say that we got to Alpha Centauri and there was a planet that had living beings. Well, we're going to experience problems that we experienced during the age of exploration. They might have diseases that kill us. We might have diseases that kill them. The introduction of our species to their biological environment might cause like ecological devastation. Also, right now, we're treating sentient species on our planet as moral zombies, and we're industrially farming them. Whereas we're probably going to have like a more evolved perception of life if we're going to be dealing with life that is not of Earth origin. And so the whole point of this is that, like, there's complex technological and moral calculations when it comes to this shit. It's interesting. It gives us a future forward looking perspective. And it also challenges some of the moral principles on which we operate every single day. And so this is why I wish that I could have conversations with smart people the world over about how do we get into the stars and what are we going to do when we encounter sapient species. But instead, I have to argue with like 80 IQ race realists about whether or not black people are technically human. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I also have to argue with libs about whether or not jihadism is a national security concern. So like, I'm stuck here with you fucking apes.
And while we're stuck here, can we just make it a taboo to talk to Fuentes?
No.
Why not?
Because like I've DM'd Fuentes twice, no response. I've you know, if I've thought about going into his chat and super chatting him and saying like, hey, instead of committing suicide because your super chatters are cringe, let's have a debate about XYZ ABC. He's a part of the cultural zeitgeist, whether you like him or not.
But there should be a taboo for the socialists.
Like I've said before, dude, I swear to God, I say, are you my wife? I swear to God, I say shit and you just don't hear it. So no, you can talk to the socialists, but unless you guys have a shared plan, a platform that you both want to push together,
with the Groypers,
it should be known.
You have a shared plan.
Yes, and my shared plan is trying to convince hundreds of thousands or millions of young men to get their shit together. That's my shared plan.
That's my shared plan with the lefties.
I don't believe you. I think you like social democratic policies. I think that you would want to live in Scandinavia if you
could.
Different. If you could make the United States.
Well, no.
If you could make the United States. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. If you could make the United States Sweden tomorrow, you would.
No, I fucking
yes,
wouldn't.
You would.
No, I wouldn't. I'm the most pro-America person there is because I love America.
Why wouldn't you have a robust social safety net, paid maternity and paternity leave, universal health care, dental, generous PTO, stronger unions? Why wouldn't you want any of that stuff?
Because I love our freedom and rights here, and I wouldn't trade it for universal health care.
I swear to God, you're hiding your power level. What the fuck is this?
What are you talking about? Everything I say, everything I do is like pro-constitution, pro-freedom, anti-corruption. Now, under current administration, okay, I mean, when Trump's in office, that's definitely like a harder choice or whatever. Although I think Sweden's having some shit. I don't fucking know what they're doing. But no, in general, I want America to fix its own problems the American way and to do it right. And there are some good ideas out there. And I'm not fucking hiding my power level, bro. That's cringe for you to say that. And when I accuse you of hiding your power level, Groyper-wise, people don't take it the right way. But you accuse me of that all the time. And by the way, everyone accuses me of that all the time. So I get to do it to Conor every now and then.
Yeah, then I mean, I don't get ass mad about it because I think that there's
truth to it.
There's kernels of truth to it.
Yes, because you think they have a good point on some of this shit.
Well, hold on. So if we actually envisioned Christian nationalism, and let's view it in its ideal form, okay, ideal. You know, we're not killing the gays or gassing the transes or deporting the blacks or dispossessing the Jews of power. Okay, at the heart of Christianity. Because I was actually raised in the church. At the heart of Christianity is actually like some pretty dope messaging. Like I could just look up the scripture right now where it's like, if somebody strikes you on the cheek, then offer him your other one. If somebody asks you for your coat, then give him your jacket as well. If somebody asks you to walk 1 mile with them, then walk with them too. It's been said that you should hate your enemies and love your friends, but do not barbarians even do this. If you claim to be the children of God, then you must not only love your friends, you must also love your enemies. And that's actually like that's kind of beautiful. Like if you took that and you put that into, regardless of like mythological belief, ignore all the mythology for a minute.
Okay.
If you got human beings to believe that it was their calling not only to love their friends, but also to love their enemies, then you could actually build a much better world. But the problem is that Christians, they actually ignore probably that most central of scripture, and they don't live it at all. They cloak themselves in the righteousness of religion while ignoring probably the most important prescription.
I'm sure you could pick out some beautiful lines of the Quran and some beautiful lines.
Yeah, sure.
Any fucking. I mean, I'm sure you could.
I could
get some quotes from like Hitler, and you'd be like, "Wow, that's beautiful."
Well, hold on. There's actually one legitimate line from the Quran that's beautiful, and it says, "What is it? It's like, and it was declared to them in the kingdom of Israel that if you take a life, it's as if you've killed all of humanity, and if you save a life, it's as if you've saved all of humanity." But then the very next verse is, But for those who spread corruption in the land, it would be better that they be crucified or have their hands struck off.
Yeah, but don't make me go into the fucking Bible to
there's
pull
not
out.
as many beautiful verses in the Quran.
Hang on. In terms of just volume, the Quran is shorter than the Bible. The Bible has probably, on balance, like more fucked up shit in it.
Yeah, the Quran's also hyper repetitive. I would Doobie. As a matter of fact, I can't ask Doobie to do this because he's an anti-Zionist. I wish I could pay you $500. I think the Quran is 11 hours as a audiobook. I wish I could pay you $500 to listen to the Quran audiobook in full on stream. It gets pretty hardcore. Me? What?
Doobie or me?
You.
Well, I'm just being Islamophobic.
Let's not worry about it. The point is, the point that I was making, though, is if Christian nationalism was actually taking that verse of loving your enemies and then every single person inside the United States of America injecting that into their soul and living that every single day, that would be a better world. But that's not what Christians are. That's not what America is. And so that's why Christian nationalism is cringe.
You know what? I think we agree on that. And that's why Nick Fuentes is cringe, right?
He's a terrible Christian.
What? And he's cringe as well, right?
Horrible Christian.
And he's cringe?
He's one of the worst Christians that exists.
And he's, of course, cringe.
Yes.
All right. Sick. Hey, I think we got to a good place here. I think there's more to talk about on immigration stuff. I'd love to talk with you about it at some point in the future. But I really enjoy our conversations, Connor. Just don't go bad faith on me. Don't go bad faith on me. That was yesterday. That shit. I
didn't. That was me. That's my personality. Dude, this is once again where I'm asking if you're my wife. I promise you, the stupid things that I'm saying are the stupid things that I actually believe. So if you're like, Connor's lying to me right now, you could believe one of two things. You could believe Connor's lying to me or Connor's an idiot. It's more safe to presume that, at least from your worldview, I'm an idiot.
All right.
I will not lie.
I'll chalk it up. I'll chalk it up to fucking weirdness and fucking.
Never assign to malice that which can be explained by stupidity.
This is a super chat from Doobie. Says Connor likes to take verses of the Quran totally out of context and pretend they justify his anti-Muslim bigotry. To be honest, I've read the Quran. I don't need the audiobook. Lol. It's on my bookshelf.
Yeah, Doobie, I don't believe you, but that's okay.
Oh no. All right, are you done for the day, or should I?
I'm done for the day. Okay. I've done 4.5 hours. I got 33 super chats. I love my chat. They're awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Connor. Let's talk again real soon. I want to talk more about immigration when you have the time. And also, super chat from Doobie who says Connor does to Muslims with the Quran the same shit Groy pursued to the Jews with the Talmud. Thoughts?
I don't think that's actually correct. I think what people do with the Talmud is comparable to what people do to Muslims with the Hadith. The problem, of course, is that the Talmud does have some fucked up passages in it, but it's largely just rabbis arguing back and forth throughout history. And with the Hadith, unfortunately, I think it's like Abu al-Bakari or whatever. Abu al-Bakari does say some fucked up shit. So
last question for you. Does Fuentes have better answers to the demographic problems that the left refuses to address?
No. Nope. As a matter of fact, I would say that all the things that Fuentes has as prescriptions actually exacerbate the problem. This is actually a really complex and interesting question, so if you'll indulge me 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The prescriptions from the Christian nationalists is moratorium on all immigration, pro-natalist tax policy, and redistributive economic policies. But if you look at nations, national conservative nations that have already done this, if you look at Hungary, if you look at Poland to a degree, all of their pronatalism and anti-immigration, it moved the pronatalism stuff a tick. Like instead of having 1.55, births per whatever, they have like 1.58 for 5 years. And then when the policy like eliminates, the tick goes away. And so pronatalism policy is not going to save us from the demographic, and anti-immigration sentiment is not going to save us from the challenges that we face in the next century.
Well, appreciate your input on that, and thank you. I think that there's some common ground there for us to build on, and we'll talk fucking soon. Maybe this week, maybe next week.
Yeah, sure. Whenever you get pissed off, let me know. We'll yell at each other, and then we'll have a nice makeup session afterwards. We'll do some aftercare.
Okay,
hold on. Last meme.
Yeah.
You said the word aftercare in reference to Destiny pressing you on your conversation with either Hutch or Lonerbox.
In reference to like Hutch and I having nice
some contentious arguments.
Yeah, a little.
What was so funny about that is chat and I started labeling. They're like, Pisco's a BDSM debater.
No, but it was funny because he has good instincts. There's a reason why he's popular. It's because what does it mean? Why do you have aftercare? Because you fucked him, and that was a good line. And so I set myself up for that one. So I'll take the L on that.
I'm gonna make I'm gonna make Twitch and YouTube political merch, and I'm gonna put a cartoon version of you in like BDSM gear, and it's gonna be like Pisco, the BDSM debater.
Okay, brother. Hey, we'll talk soon. Okay, appreciate you.
Yep. Bye now.